Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 511. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
My name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Happy New Year, guys.
Thanks, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Kyle.
Thank you. Did anyone do anything exciting or thrilling to celebrate the new year?
No.
All right, James.
You know, the most exciting thing we did is we went outside and watched fireworks, because in Florida, everyone shoots off fireworks everywhere. It's amazing. It's just chaos all around you, and it's a lot of fun.
In Florida, everybody shoots off fireworks, whether there's a reason to or not.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the comedic writer Dave Barry?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like in the 90s and probably
Yeah.
80s he was
He wrote
writing.
He's still
bathroom books.
around.
Well, because he's from Miami, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So I remember he had a whole article about people in Florida shooting guns off for various holidays, and then a comedic take on where those bullets are going to land as they fall back down.
Do you know that my last house, I found a bullet embedded in our roof?
Dave Barry predicted it. I do believe that because Dave Barry told me so.
Was it like entering the roof or exiting it?
It was embedded on the top of the roof from the sky.
So it fell from the sky.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, you did not tell us that.
No.
I have the bullet. You can see it.
You kept
What-
it?
Oh, I definitely kept that.
Is it? Can you tell what kind of bullet it is?
Yeah, a metal one.
I mean, like get all CSI on it and figure out what it was.
I've reconstructed the original shape
Mhm.
and traced it back to the location it was shot from.
Civil War bullet.
It's civil, pre Civil War.
Yeah, someone was shooting their musket off during New Year's. And
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
511. We're there. Welcome to the podcast. This is one of our top 10 last 10 episodes, which is a podcast favorite.
Hey, let's make this our best episode yet.
I
the
think
best
that's
of
a
the
great
year.
idea.
No.
Oh,
no.
ever.
The best ever. Let's just
Good idea.
make it that way.
I thought that was the agreement for every episode.
I don't know.
But for real this time.
I've been
Was
giving
it?
100%, guys. What have you guys been doing?
I don't know. I don't know what we've been doing.
All right, best episode ever. James, go.
Okay. Let's
Oh.
start with some housekeeping.
Make me laugh.
Housekeeping. Before we jump into the top 10 last 10 goodness, I need to remind you that there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube at youtube.com. Search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. Find the video version there, and you can watch us while you listen to us. You could also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinereelists. Get extra after show audio as well as other Cinereelists swag. You could listen to us on Apple Podcasts, where you could also leave us a review. And if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts with text or stars, we would greatly appreciate that. Also, you could send us a listener email. Send the email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Send us an email. Send in your top 20 of 2021, which is the episode we're going to talk about next week. And then the week after is our annual hangover episode, where we will discuss a reader aggregate top 20. So that's why we need you guys to email us your top 20. Email us your top 20 favorite movies, or 10, somewhere between 10 and 20 movies that you saw in 2021 that are 2021 movies. And then we will put it into the aggregate, listener aggregate. So you basically have 2 weeks to get us that top 20. So if you have a couple more movies to watch, cram them in there, and then send us your lists, and we'll get it added to the reader aggregate.
Hey, James, big news.
Well, okay.
If I just searched Cinereelists in YouTube and discovered you don't even have to put the S at the end. It'll still find it.
Nice. Perfect. I can stop saying that now.
Yeah. You do need the double E's, though.
You definitely need the double E's. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All
Otherwise,
right.
It's a bunch of racing videos.
Let's jump into our list for this week. This is the top 10, last 10.
Top 10, top 10, and top 10, last 10, and last 10, and last 10, last 10, and top 10, top 10, and top 10, and top 10, and last 10, last 10, and last 10, and last 10, and top 10.
We've been doing this since like episode 4 or 5 of the podcast. It's a favorite. If you've never heard us do a top 10, last 10, this is what it is. Take it away, Kyle.
So a top 10, last 10 is a list where we take the last 10 movies we watched and we rank them against each other, favorite to least favorite, and that's really the only criteria.
Yep, that's exactly right. So we're going to list 10 movies. They're not going to be related. We're going to order them in order of preference. The end. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Go for it, Zach.
Okay, my number 10 is a movie on Netflix that is being heavily promoted from 2021 called Don't Look Up. And this stars a lot of people like Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence and who else?
I
Meryl
also
Streep.
saw that movie. It's my number 9.
Nice. Meryl Streep, Kate Blanchett, Mark Rylance, Jonah Hill, Tyler Perry, Timothy Chalamet, Ariana Grande, Ron Perlman, amongst others. This movie was a little insufferable, I felt.
Yes.
It is, so it's like, it's supposed to be satire, right? Like by Adam McKay, of how dysfunctional the world is and how gullible people are, and a parody of like the Trump administration and climate change and all that kind of stuff. And it's just so smarmy and cynical that I just couldn't enjoy it. Someone said this is like the liberal version of God's Not Dead, and I thought that fit really well. It's just so on the nose, and there's no subtlety, and it's just it's not fun to watch. I felt. I mean, there's stuff there, like it's not garbage, and it's well made. It's just, it all comes back to the directing. That editorial voice is so thick, and it's just, I'm not a huge fan of Adam McKay. I think that he approaches everything with way too heavy a hand. For me,
I wouldn't say everything. Like the first version of this movie that he made, the one about the financial crisis.
Sure.
Oh, Big
What's
Short.
the name of that movie? Big Short. I thought Big Short had a good tone to it, but then with Vice, it got a little more cynical, a little more preaching to the crowd. And then in this movie, he goes like full preaching to the crowd, I would say.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
The problem is like I'm probably the crowd, and it even annoyed me. I was like, who are you trying? Are you trying to convert people, or like what? If your goal was to like make a movie that people will stumble upon and make them think, he's just beating you over the head with a hammer.
Yeah.
Like even if it did apply to you, you would see it as just an extension of CNN or something like that. Like it's just like so very obviously slanted. And on top of that, it was easily half an hour to 45 minutes too long. It was so long. I was like, when is this going to end? Even though it does have moments, it was just, I wanted it to end. It would not end.
So this is actually on my list also. Should we just do like 5 minutes on this movie?
Well,
Just
sure.
talk about it as a group, and then,
Well,
then
just-
we can.
I think Zach and I have it out there. What did you think of it, Kyle?
So I have it at number 7 on my list.
Okay.
So still low. And yeah, it's incredibly heavy-handed and like you said, Zach, just the satire is too on the nose, and it keeps pointing to itself and being like, "Do you get it? Do you get it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. What else do you have for me?" And it goes to the same well a lot. Like there are some funny moments. Like for me, the funniest part is the gag about the snacks, which has nothing to do with the satire of the movie
I don't even
whatsoever.
remember that.
Do you remember that the general charges
general
them
that
for
charged him,
snacks?
yeah.
Oh, right.
And then they find out the snacks are free, and then there's like 3 other times in the movie that Jennifer Lawrence is talking to someone, and it's like mid-conversation. She's like, "And
She
the
can't get
snacks-"
over it.
Yeah, right, and like every time they brought that back, I actually thought that was pretty funny, but it has nothing to do with the plot of the movie whatsoever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill, they were just going way too big for me.
Mhm.
So for me, the 3 people that worked well for me
Mhm.
were Mark Rylance, Jonah Hill, and Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, Timothée Chalamet, like in small doses as a character actor, I think I can believe it.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And Mark Rylance, I
I
thought was
believed he
good.
was who he was in the movie. for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, who did Mark Rylance play?
He was the head of the Facebook surrogate.
Oh, okay. I didn't like that character. But
Well, I appreciated that he made a pretty strong choice for the character and stuck with it.
Mhm.
I was cool with that.
So
Alright.
I was thinking about this movie and compared to like Doctor Strangelove, which is an amazing satire, and both have big performances. Both are made kind of like in the moment of whenever their topic is taking place. Why does Strangelove work so well and this one does not?
I mean, a cynical take would be because Strangelove is old.
As in, like it's had time to age,
Yeah.
and we're not living in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Dr. Strangelove is directed by Stanley Kubrick,
Yeah, but
not
I mean, like,
Adam McKay.
yeah, okay.
Dr. Strangelove is 1 hour and 34 minutes, and not 2 hours and 34
True,
minutes.
yeah.
We forgot to mention that James has an encyclopedic knowledge of the runtime of every movie he's ever seen,
Yeah,
as displayed just now.
I looked it up. It was worth looking up.
I liked Kate Blanchett in it too. I thought she was doing a pretty great job.
As the
I-
TV
she-
anchor.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, but it's just, again, it was so heavy-handed.
Yeah, she didn't have a lot to do with it. Like her character was pretty one note, but what she had to do, she pulled it off. Versus Meryl Streep, who I was like, okay, you're Trump or whatever. I get it.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Anything else on Don't Look Up? All right. We're not going to mention again for the next hour and a half.
I mean, when it pops up on my list, I'll say this is where it is, but
Nope.
I'm not gonna.
Just be like, that's the movie
Did-
we already talked about.
Did
Yeah.
James stutter, Kyle?
All right. My number 10, Operation Varsity Blues, the college admissions scandal. It's a documentary on Netflix.
I think that was my number 1 when I saw it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't hate this movie. It's just kind of a standard telling of what happened. I mean, I thought it was interesting that they used like actual phone transcripts. Like they didn't invent any language, but they did take phone transcript, wiretap phone call transcripts, and like cobble together a story with like talking heads to lead you from one segment to another. I thought that part was interesting, but I mean, short of the presentation, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, you explained to us how it happened. It just wasn't all that intriguing or thought-provoking or interesting, or it was just kind of like, here's the machinations of like a con man who figured out a way.
I gave this 4.5 stars.
Sure.
And what I thought was especially special was Matthew Modine. He did all of the recreations of the guy.
Sure.
And it just gave it like a level of polish that I was way into. And I don't like reenactments in documentaries.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is mostly reenactment. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like watching a narrative with voiceovers from real people who are
Yeah.
just voicing over via interview. So yeah, the presentation is interesting. It's just I think the story itself isn't all that interesting to me, and unfortunately, that's part of why I watch documentaries. And I didn't necessarily pick this movie to watch, which is I'm not
Oh.
saying that's why it's so low. It's just when I click on a documentary, I'm highly motivated as far as
Yeah.
like just the basis of the documentary. So the fact that this was one that I didn't pick might maybe I only like documentaries if I am interested in the topic. Couldn't
You
tell
were stewing for the first 20 minutes.
I mean, I gave this a 3. It's not like I hate this movie. It just there's a lot of good movies on this list. It happens to be number 10.
Wow, you liked your number 9 better than a 3.
I did. The movie that shall not be mentioned, I liked a little better than this documentary.
Kyle, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is a 1944 film by Akira Kurosawa called The Most Beautiful. And Zach, I actually watched this movie because of you.
Okay.
And the reason why is probably in the last year or two, you and I were talking about our top 10 directors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about my top 10 directors just based on ratings. Like, just by the math, here are my top 10 directors. And you challenged me to watch the worst rated movie on Letterboxd from each of those 10 directors to see if it, like, what happened to them. And I will report that Akira Kurosawa dropped out of the top 10 to number 20 just based on the numbers, based on this movie. Because I did not like this movie. So
oh man,
this is the second movie he ever made, and it is a Japanese World War II propaganda film. It is about a group of young women who work in a optics factory during World War II, where they're building lenses for telescopes and guns that go on warships and airplanes and things like that. But this being a propaganda film, the movie is, and I use the word movie loosely, is all about their desire to work and to work harder and to work through through any adversity and to not let outside drama distract them from work. Basically, it's about work harder, and keep working. Like, the word work is said in this movie so many times. I'm surprised I don't know the Japanese word for work by now. Like, there's one moment where one of the girls slips and falls off a roof and breaks her legs, and the first thing she says is, "I'm so glad my hands are okay so I can keep working." And when oftentimes you can watch some of these early, not every accomplished director is amazing out of the gates, right? A lot of times, even people like Kubrick need a couple movies to get their legs going. And sometimes you can watch these early films and you can find some inspiration or something interesting about it, or say, okay, even though this is a propaganda film, there's at least this interesting part about it. And I found nothing about this movie interesting. Not the camera work, the directing. It didn't feel like I was watching a Kurosawa film just with propaganda. It just felt like I was watching a boring, repetitive propaganda film.
I'm looking at trivia right now, and Akira Kurosawa married his wife, who he met on this film. She was an actress in it.
Oh, did she work hard?
She did. Actually, he had the whole cast live at the factory and work their jobs that they had in the movie.
So it was both a propaganda film and a way to create more lenses for the war effort.
Yeah.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Interesting. So are you going to stick with it with your other directors?
Yeah. I've got Emperor Waltz, Billy Wilder, Quentin Tarantino. The only one I haven't seen is Death Proof, so it's got to see that one. There's one by I have on my watch list my top 10 directors' worst movies.
That's great.
Except for Kubrick, because I've seen all of his. So
okay, my number 9 is a Terrence Malick film starring Brad Pitt, and it's Voyage of Time: The IMAX Experience. And this is his documentary about the creation of the world and of the universe and like life and all that kind of stuff. And I'm a Malick fan. I really like Terrence Malick, and I think that he can come up with some really beautiful images. And this was definitely a labor of love for him. There's shots in this going all the way back to the 70s. I mean, he has been thinking about and trying to make this for 50 years. and I didn't like it. What it does is, so it starts in blackness, really, with Brad Pitt kind of narrating. It starts with a big bang. It goes through like creation of stars and galaxies and planets and the first emergence of life and all that kind of stuff. And he has some really interesting images that he uses through like, unique, really unique videography techniques of like chemical reactions in high speed film and stuff like that. And he's filming all over the world to get like these really unique shots. But for me, there was this disconnect between they're trying to show like, oh, this is what like the Big Bang looked like, but they're showing like a real chemical reaction that they filmed. So it's like not what that is. It's like an approximation, but like it's meant to give you the vibe without actually being accurate, So like for if it's talking about like creation of life or that kind of thing, it'll show you like really cool artistic imagery of like chemical reactions and like flares and stuff. But like that's not actually like what it would have looked like at all. It's just like it gives you a sense, like a feeling. It's a tone poem, basically. I just found that annoying. I kind of wanted a more straight up documentary, I think, with beautiful imagery would have been cool. And intercut with that is all the CG that he does. So like he'll have CG like proto dinosaurs kind of a thing walking around. And it's not very good CG and it's just a little weird. And I don't know. At every point I was kind of annoyed. Like they talk about the primordial or Earth and then clearly just show stock video, not stock. I mean, he took it himself, of unusual places on our current Earth, like he'd go to where there's like lava pits and stuff and film that and put that at the part was like primordial Earth, which I get, right? It kind of gives a sense of primordial Earth, but no, that's actual just real Earth right now. So it felt like watching a Planet Earth documentary that was lying to you. Like it was like really pretty cool footage, but like not of the stuff that it's saying it's the stuff of. And the whole thing just felt a little thin to me, and I didn't get the Malick vibe that I love. So it was a big waste of my time, to be honest. So there's two versions of this. I watched the IMAX experience, which is 45 minutes long. There's also a hour and a half long version that's narrated by Cate Blanchett.
So did you actually see this in an IMAX theater?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And this kind of sounds like that middle section of what's the other Brad Pitt movie? Tree of Life. Is it just extended kind of like that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So like works for 10 minutes in Tree of Life, doesn't work for 45 minutes on its own.
Yes.
All right.
Especially because Tree of Life is like that is a narrative, right? That's supposed to give you these senses and feelings and, the kind of thing. Whereas this is like a documentary. It felt disconnected to me. I didn't like it.
Yeah, that segment Tree of Life actually ties to the themes of the movie itself.
Yeah.
Through dinosaurs.
My number 9 is that one movie. What's your number 9, Kyle?
My number 9 is Cars 2 from 2011.
Is this a first time watch for you?
This is a first time watch for me.
Wow.
It's not a movie where I just sat down and said, I'm going to watch Cars 2 tonight. But my son and I were having a movie night, and we alternate. Like one movie night, I get to choose the movie. One movie night, he gets to choose. And he chose Cars 2, which he really likes. He thought it was cool, and it was, he's seen it before. So he's like, oh, watch this part. Oh, this part's funny. This part's cool. He was enjoying it, but I was waiting for it to be over. I do think I graded this movie a little harshly because it's Pixar, and I have a higher standard for what a Pixar movie is. So maybe if this was not Pixar, I would be more like, okay, whatever. This is fine kid fodder. But the fact that it is Pixar, even if it's a sequel to Cars, which isn't their strongest franchise, like the fact that they could stoop as low as this, I was pretty disappointed by. Wasn't surprised though. I've heard the stories, so I wasn't expecting, anything worse per se. But it was as bad as I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, wait till you see Cars 3.
I've seen Cars 3. I like Cars 3. It's watchable. better than
Cars
Cars
2 and
2.
Cars 3 are just as bad as each other, in my opinion.
Okay, I found Cars 3 tolerable. Maybe
Mm.
because this movie has so much Larry the Cable Guy,
Oh, yeah, there's a lot
and
of
he
it.
is all over this movie, and I'm just like, no, please stop with. Like, even by 2011, Larry the Cable Guy had outworn his welcome,
Mhm.
and here he is all over it. It's also this is a G-rated movie, and there's so much talking of killing in this movie,
Hmm.
which I just found odd for a G-rated movie. Like, my son understands
Sure.
the concept of killing, and he's not like, "What does that mean?" But just the fact that I'm watching this movie and this car's like, "Oh, make sure you kill him, make sure you kill him." Like, that's a lot of kill talk. A, for a Pixar movie, and B, just for a G-rated movie in general.
Hmm. I don't remember that, but I believe you.
I mean, was the last time you saw Cars 2 a decade ago?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Cool.
What's your number 8,
Well-
Zach?
My number 8 is Being the Ricardos from 2021.
Mm.
This is not a movie that I didn't like, but I didn't especially enjoy it either. It was very easy to watch, but there was nothing really that I cared about for this movie. It's directed and written by Aaron Sorkin, who is a writer that I actually really like. But I felt like his shtick of like, we're gonna condense a person's like biography into 1 week of their life, I felt was pretty played out in this movie, right? So it's the story of Lucy and Desi, but it's like 1 week, right? And so it's just a very concentrated kind of look at everything that they're dealing with and their personality types and like that kind of thing. And I thought all the performances were good to great. A standout being J.K. Simmons, I really liked a lot. But there was nothing there. This was a very flat movie for me without highs and lows that really made me care. So I don't know. But I didn't not like it.
I find it interesting that both of the leads have said they wish this movie wasn't made or didn't know if they actually should have been in this movie in the first place.
What?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Why?
well, so it's been mostly Nicole Kidman has been all over the news of her talking about was I the right person for this? Is this the right story? Should I be playing Lucille Ball?
Why?
She had a lot of self-doubt. Well, just because I think it's such a big character, it's a big personality to embody. So I think whenever you're trying to play into whenever you're trying to like be a real person who's such a big personality in life, and then there was a lot of backlash when she was initially casted too, which played into maybe her doubts, and even Javier Bardem. He's not been as vocal, but he even came out to say like, I don't know if this was the best movie for me to make, or if I should have been the person that played Desi Arnaz.
I thought they were both fine.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, so that didn't show on the screen, but it's interesting, at least after the movie came out, to hear both of them kind of question their role in the movie, or should they have been in the first place.
Zach, you know how much I like Aaron Sorkin. Is it worth seeing just to see it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep it on the list then. My number 8 is I should just say every movie on my list is a 2021 movie. Just
Really?
So I don't have to
Binged.
say that again.
Okay.
So number 8, Palmer, which I believe is a movie that Kyle has seen.
Oh yeah, I saw this way in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so it's an American drama starring Justin Timberlake and Juno Temple and Alicia Wainwright. And it's directed by Fisher Stevens, who is the star of Short Circuit 2, and then eventually started directing things, including this movie. And I enjoyed it. I mean, it's my number 8, but that's just because there's like a crazy, strong list, I would say. I definitely don't dislike this movie. If anything, this movie just doesn't have. I liked the performance of Justin Timberlake, and I especially liked the kid, Ryder Allen. I thought,
Oh, yeah.
like child performances, it was good. But like Palmer, the character is just kind of like a shell of a person by design, I think, because of like stuff that's happened in his life. He's very personalityless, I would say, until he gets mad, and then he like gets all rageful and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's just really super chill and just kind of watching life happen around him, I would say. And that makes it easy for Justin Timberlake to play him because you don't have to do a lot of emoting unless you're angry. And I feel like that's like one of the easiest emotions to portray. So it's like the perfect role for a guy who, doesn't have a whole lot of acting experience. So he does it well, but there's just not much there, I would say. There's also not a lot of explanation as to why, like, he's the only one who uh accepts this kid in the way that he does. I don't know. I mean, he comes to it over time, so maybe it's not there's not no explanation. There's just not a lot of explanation as to why he would
Yeah,
lean in as heavy as he does.
he's paired with the kid out of necessity for the kid.
Right.
And then, right, over time, he becomes to better understand the kid and sort of help the kid adjust to real world.
Sure.
They learn from each other.
Well, by the end of it, he tells the kid not even to adjust to the real world.
True.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yes.
By the end of it, he's fully supportive, I would say.
Let your freak flag fly.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. If you want to see what Justin Timberlake can do with like a serious dramatic role, this is what he can do, and it's completely watchable.
It's a very watchable film. Yep.
My number 8.
My number 8 is 2018's Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I watched this because I got the Jurassic Park collection on 4K, and it's the only one I had not seen of the 5 movies. And I'm pretty neutral on this movie. I don't have a ton to say about it. Again,
Neutral?
the only reason I watched it is because I own it, so I figured I might as well complete the set. It starts out fine. It's kind of fun at the beginning when all these movies are always how we get them back on an island. That's that's always the setup. So we're back on the island again. Dinosaurs are roaming free, but there's a ecological disaster, and there's some interesting conversations about: do we protect these lives? Are they actual lives, or because they're clones based on broken DNA, they're not even real creatures? And I thought that was all kind of interesting. And there's definitely was some troubling scenes of CGI dinosaurs suffering, which I thought was pretty impressive to get me to care so much about these fake creatures. And then the second half completely turns. So I guess I do have an opinion on this movie. And now we've got weird genetic billionaire stuff going on, and it's a whole haunted house scenario. It's the director of The Orphanage, who is a top 100 movie of mine. So I could understand what he was trying to go for. He was trying to bring a gothic horror aspect to the Jurassic World world, and it just didn't work for me in that second half. It felt silly. And there's also a reveal about a girl in the movie, which is completely glossed over, which was, I thought, for that world would be earth shattering, but they really don't do much with that at all. So
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I do know what he's talking about, and I just disagree with him. I think that would be as normal in this world because of what they can already do.
But they haven't done that with that yet.
How do you know?
I don't know, but I assume that no one else has done it, or this is the first time we're learning about it through this movie in this world.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that was almost more interesting part of it, but we got to stick to dinosaurs chasing people through some sort of habitat. So
I agree. The movie should have ended right as they leave the island. That should be the end of the movie. There
After
should be no
45
back
minutes.
half. Well, I mean, just spread that.
Yeah.
Make it like surviving on the island with like the theme park all run down and dinosaurs everywhere. Make a movie out of that.
I just think, are dinosaurs not interesting enough that we have to make like genetically modified dinosaurs in order to be interesting. Like, just give us dinosaurs. They don't have to be like these like amalgams, you know?
I, I think, I mean, this is kind of, to bring it back to last week, this is kind of what Matrix Resurrections was talking about, maybe clumsily, but the idea of like the sequel, and like it's the same but different. And like this time we had this, now we have to have that. So I think it's franchisation, if that's a word, where we can't just have dinosaurs, we have to have super dinosaurs.
Well, I think they could.
Can't we just have dinosaurs interestingly presented?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
but
you could still use dinosaurs instead of just making them bigger, which is not that interesting. Make them more interestingly presented. Make
Yeah.
a found footage version of a Jurassic Park movie. You know what I mean? There's like
yeah,
800 ways you could do this without just making the dinosaurs bigger or not even dinosaurs anymore, basically.
I mean, to be cynical, what's easier, to make an interesting dinosaur story or just make them bigger?
Make them bigger.
Right. Like, so if you're trying to make money and you know people are going to see this movie either way. I mean, like Jurassic, both the Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom have made tons of money.
Mhm.
So their incentive to make them interesting is pretty low.
I don't disagree, but I wish we could get more out of them.
Oh, I agree. I want more interesting, more artistic, better dinosaur movies.
Me too.
But I'm
Top of
going
my
to
list.
get yeah. My last comment is these last two movies have made the T-Rex such the hero.
Mhm.
Where yes, the T-Rex is a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina in the original Jurassic Park at the very end there, but now like both Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, they're just throwing that T-Rex around left and right, and it's a little ridiculous.
In the next one, what's his name is going to put a saddle on it and start riding it around.
Star-Lord,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just recently took an online class about dinosaurs,
Mhm.
and can I share 2 fun facts with you?
Sure.
Please.
Number one is most dinosaurs they think were warm-blooded, which I found interesting.
Oh,
Because reptiles are cold-blooded, you know, so that was cool. And then the other thing is, you know how to tell the difference between a fossil and a bone? Like a fossil and a rock? Is that if you lick it, your tongue will stick to a fossil, but it won't stick to a rock. And so that's like the quick way that paleontologists will check a bone.
and
That's
then
weird.
how do they unstick their tongue from the fossil?
I mean, it doesn't latch to it
Oh,
like
okay.
a
Like a
frozen
super
pole.
glue.
or like a
Yeah,
cold
yeah.
metal pole.
Yeah. Because fossils have all these like little micro air pockets that kind of like suction to your tongue a little bit.
I wonder how often a paleontologist licks it. Like, oh, that's dried horse poop.
I bet a lot. All right. My number 7 is a 2021 animated film on Netflix now, or no, on Disney Plus now, called Encanto.
Mm.
And I watched this recently and I liked it, but ultimately I thought it was fairly forgettable. Especially because the marker of a Disney musical to me is the music, and I found the music in this movie pretty lackluster. Right out of the gate, the first song is being used to explain all the characters, but it's so the lyrics are so quick that you literally cannot follow it. You catch every like third line, and it just does not make for a memorable song or an effective song without subtitles, I think. There's only one good song in the film, and that's We Don't Talk About Bruno, and that's a legitimately good song. I like that song. The actual story is good. You know, it's an interesting premise, but the movie definitely like paces out what its message is. You know, like Disney movies always have some sort of like message or moral or something like that, but it like trickles it throughout the film. So it's really not until like the last 15 minutes that you're like explicitly said what message you're supposed to take from this film, and it's way too long to wait. Like, so what are we doing here, guys? You know, like it's obviously I mean, you can kind of see ahead, like, okay, this is going to happen next, but I don't know what the movie wants me to think about that. Like it's very easy to like predict what the next thing's going to happen is, but it's so dragged out what the message of the film is. And when it finally comes, you're like, well, this could have been a 20-minute movie.
Hmm.
So I thought it was thin from that perspective. But and it's beautiful. The animation is so good. It's beautiful. The characters have that common thing that, they're very exaggerated faces, with like, like they're caricatures of like real people, but like the verisimilitude of like real objects and the lighting and everything is so crisp and so good. It's amazing.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I liked it. But I thought it was fairly forgettable.
Is it Disney or Pixar?
It's Disney, I
Disney,
think.
okay.
It's the Frozen group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My number 7 is a movie titled Penguin Bloom. You guys ever seen this or heard it? Heard of it?
No.
Have
It's
not.
a Netflix movie. It's a drama. Another one that I didn't pick, that somebody who is in my household picked. And I enjoyed this one. Although I hesitate to say that because this is a pretty depressing movie, I would say. It stars Naomi Watts and Andrew Lincoln. They're kind of like a family of 4, two kids. I think there's 2 kids. There might be 3 kids. They got a couple kids. They're this Australian couple, kind of like your nuclear Australian couple, and they're in your mid 30s or something. And they're on vacation in Thailand, and the wife, played by Naomi Watts, gets into an accident and gets paralyzed from the waist down. So the rest of the movie is like her and her young children and her husband dealing with the fact that like she'll never walk again, type of thing. And that's kind of depressing, right? To think about that you would be on vacation and then like your entire life would change. And like they were like outdoorsy people that lived on the beach, type of thing. And it's a drama with a lot of dramatic moments. And there's this bird that it's called a magpie. I don't know if you've heard of those. I always thought magpies were like pretty vicious animals, right? Don't magpies have a reputation of like dive bombing people and like bloodying them?
I think that's a red-winged blackbird you're thinking of.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, this bird that kind of looks like a mini crow, like adopts them as a family, and they have this bird in their house, and it just like doesn't have a cage; it just runs around the house, and that's where the name comes from, Penguin Bloom. That's as much as I'm going to explain that.
All right.
Well, I'm looking
Okay.
at the IMDb cast list, and it does list about a dozen named penguins in the cast list.
Yeah, because I'm sure they had trained birds
Yeah.
play the bird. Yep.
I don't understand. So the penguins played the magpie?
No. The magpie is named Penguin.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, maybe. Okay, so maybe these are all different magpies that play
Yeah, I'm sure they had like 6 magpies that look the same.
Oh, they have like 12.
Okay, they have
You
a bunch.
got to take Swoop out, put Hollywood in. Hollywood gets testy, then got to bring Wendell. Wendell gets
labor
tired. Here
laws.
comes Pip.
You got it.
Yep.
Fun Naomi Watts fact.
Uh-huh.
Her dad was the road manager for Pink Floyd.
That is fun.
Have you heard of them before, Zach?
We'll get into it.
All right, Penguin Bloom. I gave it a 3.5. Totally watchable. Just be ready for like lots of familial angst.
My number 7 is the 2021 film that we may no longer name.
Okay. Nice. My number 6 is a 2021 film called Pig. And this stars Nicolas Cage and a pig. And It's it's their movie. Um, I man, I have complicated thoughts about this film. Um, I found this movie very engrossing. I was super interested and captivated by it the majority of the time. And ultimately I found it pretty disappointing, I thought. I'm disappointed with this film, even though I think it's very well shot and very interesting. Um, I just I think that it left a bunch of it had a bunch of carrots and for me to follow, and it didn't pay so many of them off. It felt like a tease, and then the places it does go, I just felt unsatisfied by. I don't know. To talk too much more, I'd have to go into spoilers, but uh yeah, as you learn, like, the movie trickles out information. And so you're kind of like coming up with scenarios in your head as it goes of like what you think is happening. And then as it explains more later on in the film, when you look back and reassess what you've already seen, those things stop making sense. They made sense with like some of the things you're conjecturing, but as soon as you know more, they're like, well, that didn't make any sense. Or, and then you learn more and you're like, well, also this didn't make sense. Um, and it's a movie that had, I think, much lower ambitions than I thought halfway through. So I don't know. I find it fairly disappointing, but really well shot, well paced, well acted. Nicolas Cage was not annoying in this. Maybe his little sidekick buddy was annoying, but yeah, I liked it. I'm glad I watched it, but I don't know. I'm annoyed by it. So it's my number 6.
James, is this also on your list?
Yeah, but it's a lot higher.
Do we want to do a pig spoiler section at the end of this episode? So I think because we've all seen it.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I'm happy with that.
all right. Let's do a mini pig spoiler section.
Okay.
James, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is a movie titled Spencer, which is a historical fiction, I would say. Directed by Pablo Larraín, starring Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana. And this movie takes place over maybe 2 or 3 days, right around Christmas time. And it's the weekend, it's the Christmas period, vacation period that happened right before Diana and whoever she was married to.
Prince
That guy's name.
Charles.
Prince Charles like announced their divorce, basically. So she's having to be there with all the royals when she even knows in the back of her head that like this thing is over, type of thing. And I've seen it twice now. And I think that's about as much as I need to see it. And it's good. It's definitely just the set pieces are pretty amazing because you're spending time in this amazing palace with amazing people or people dressed amazingly, eating amazing food, and it's Christmas time and it's all like very beautiful and put together. And that's kind of the point of the movie is like everything is put together and has a place, including her, right? Like she is supposed to be the perfect version of the princess in her position, and she is resisting that while also trying to be respectful. And that's like a tough balance to master, and she is managing to do it in this movie. I said it's historical fiction because it's absolutely just like somebody's best guess at what happened over the course of this weekend. And you can kind of tell that because there's no like real high points or like monumental recordable moments. It's more like, oh, wouldn't you be miserable if you had to spend this weekend with your future ex-in-laws? And what if they happen to be the queen? So what would that look like, type of thing? And then they take what they know of Diana and her, what people have said about her, and they try to make a movie about what that would be. So you have to go into it knowing what to expect. Like, you're not going to get the true story of Princess Diana. You're not going to get paparazzi chases, anything like that. It's just a couple days with a woman who's very lonely, despite the fact that she's surrounded by people, and she just is done with this. Basically, she's done with this whole scene. And the reason why it's worth watching is less those reasons and more because Kristen Stewart just like disappears on the screen into the role, and she's really good in it. And yeah, if you're a fan of hers, you should check it out.
How does
Nice.
how does this compare to Jackie?
More happens in Jackie.
Okay.
I mean, at least in Jackie, like the historical events that you'd like to see what Jackie thought or what she was going through, like those happen in the movie Jackie. In this movie, nothing happens. I would say, other than you get to hang out with a miserable woman who's in a tough position and is just biding her time, basically.
Well, I do want that is on my list, so I do want to check that one out.
Yep.
My number 6 is a documentary, and it's a documentary I think has been discussed often on this podcast. It's Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
And I enjoy these documentaries about movies that are disasters or near disasters. And sometimes you get a situation where it seems like a disaster and then you get Apocalypse Now. Then other times you get a situation where you have a disaster that turns out to be 1996's Island of Dr. Moreau. I think a lot of what happens in this movie has been there that we learned through this movie has been discussed on this podcast. So I wasn't surprised by the things I learned necessarily, but it was really interesting like hearing more from Richard Stanley, who I knew nothing about, and how much he had a vision and how he felt pressure to change it, but also seemed like maybe the guy who wasn't the right person to bring a vision to fruition. Because it's one thing to be a visionary, and it's another thing to be able to execute that vision. And a lot of people have great ideas and don't know how to put them to page or screen. And he seemed to be like one of those people who wasn't quite sure how to get this all to come together. I do wish that we heard more from some of the main cast. I know it's hard to get a lot of these people on camera to talk about a movie that is so reviled and panned, but it was cool that Faizura Bulk had a good chunk of screen time to talk about her experience working on it. And I think you guys mentioned that in Val, does Val Kilmer kind of talk about this movie too and his experience? So that's a movie I still need to check out as a companion piece. But Island of Dr. Moreau is kind of a seminal movie for me. I don't like it, but it came out when I was 13. And like when you're 13 and there's a more adultish movies out there, you're like, oh, I can't wait to go see that one. It's got animals and it looks kind of freaky. And I remember being very excited to see Island of Dr. Moreau. I'm sure, Zach, you and I saw it together.
Yeah.
And
probably.
it's a movie that I kind of want to watch again because I don't think I've seen it in over a decade, maybe 15 years. And I don't know what my experience would be watching again. If I would feel like a kid again, or I'd be like, oh, this is just straight up bad. But there's a lot of it I remember. It's definitely a movie burned into my conscious.
Nice. Okay, so we're moving to the part of my list where I legitimately liked these movies without reservation. My number 5 is a listener suggestion. It's a documentary called Rush: Beyond the Lighted Stage. And it's a documentary about the Canadian rock band Rush. And this was a listener suggestion. They rightly assumed that I'd never heard of Rush. Or maybe I said it on the show. I always confused Rush with Beck. I didn't know the difference between those two. Now,
So much difference.
Yeah,
between
now
those two.
One has Geddy Lee and one has got 2 turntables and a microphone.
Now I know the difference. Not because I know anything about Beck. I still don't, but because I know a lot more about Rush. Not only did I watch the documentary, he also made me a playlist on Spotify that I listened to a bunch.
Wait.
In fact, my wife listened to it as well.
Someone made you a playlist and you listened to it?
Yeah. They made me one playlist, not 8 playlists, Kyle.
We agreed to send each other weekly playlists.
It got to be too much.
This was not, I did not surprise you with this. You were all on
No.
board.
I am still on board. It's just a matter of time. There's a certain amount of time that I have where my ears can be occupied, and I couldn't keep up.
It was early in the pandemic, and I didn't care for my current job at that time. So I was like, I'll make playlists instead.
Including music that aggressively I'm sure Zach will not like.
Well, you got to test the waters.
For sure. Okay, so Rush. Again, I knew nothing about Rush going into this. But for those of you who don't know, it's a Canadian rock band. They started kind of as hard rock, then they kind of moved into progressive rock. Then they had this period where they were like heavy into synthesizers. And then they kind of like dialed it back to more guitar-led hard rock, heavy rock. It was one thing what are you laughing at?
It's just cute listening to you describe music.
Wow.
It's like, all right, I'm going to read Wikipedia and I'm going to summarize each era in one sentence.
No, this is from the documentary.
Okay, continue.
I liked them a lot. One thing I really liked about them is just how much they've, first of all, been around. Like they've been around for decades and decades, and just seeing them evolve with the times, kind of a thing. And they were always kind of the oddballs in the music world, it seemed like. And the guy that I really liked was Neil Peart. That's the drummer. He's awesome. First of all, he's like super good drummer, but second, he's like, I don't know, he's different than the other guys. The other guys are like best friends, and he's just like this outsider who doesn't want to talk to fans, and I don't know, is just into the music. Anyway, the documentary is really good, especially if you want to know more about Rush. I learned a lot more about Rush. And I wrote down a couple of my current favorite Rush songs.
Well, let's
if you're
hear them.
Curious.
Yes.
Yeah. So Red Sector A. Let's see. I have a list here. Driven and Far Cry. Those are the ones that I found myself liking enough to write down as my list. So what about you guys? Do you like Rush? Are you Rush fans?
I have a healthy appreciation for Rush. I wouldn't say I regularly sit down and listen to Rush albums in full, but I like Rush, sure.
I find Rush to be like Frank Zappa, where you can casually listen to a couple songs. They got maybe some hits on the radio that you recognize, and you can appreciate, like James said, healthy appreciation. That's kind of where I am. And then you've got, like Frank Zappa, intense Rush fans who know all the songs, all the albums, all the oddities, know all of Neil Peart's drum licks, and just like have encyclopedic knowledge. So I don't think there's a ton of casual Rush fans. It's either awareness or you're all in.
Yeah. Or you're like a classic rock guy who knows all the hits, which there are a lot of them.
Oh yeah, like you can hear Tom Sawyer and Spirit of the Radio and Working Man in heavy rotation on classic rock radio.
Yeah. Yeah. But if I'm going to listen to like I don't know what's the style of music?
Progressive rock.
Progressive rock. I would probably put a newer artist in over Rush. Typically. But I mean, if it wasn't for Rush, there wouldn't be a lot of the progressive artists that we have today. So that's why I say I have a healthy respect for them, but probably wouldn't listen to them on my own unless it came up in a playlist.
And Zach, I was teasing earlier about talking about music, but I do think it's cool that you listened to a new music and reached out and branched out and discover something. So that's awesome.
So you can handle Geddy Lee's voice.
Yeah,
His
that
voice
wasn't
is
a turn off
interesting.
for me.
That was not a turn
for sure.
It's a turn off for some people, for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's super high, and yeah, for sure. I get that. And some of the he'll write a 20-minute song about like a dragon. I mean, like they definitely get into like high fantasy.
For sure.
But my wife liked it, and my kids didn't care for it.
All right. I'll have to send you a Coheed and Cambria song. We'll see.
Okay.
that translates. There's a
Will do.
similar newer-ish band. Even they have been around for 20 years at this point, but
Yeah. But if we were Rush, Kyle would be Geddy Lee, and probably James would be Neil Peart.
Why am I Geddy Lee? Am I the front man of this podcast?
You're the squeaky one, evidently.
Oh, ouch. Is this based on voice or
I don't know.
personality?
I don't know what he's basing it on.
We'll leave that alone. Watch the
This is the
documentary.
Cinereelists. That was my terrible Geddy Lee impression.
Yeah.
All right. My number 5 is a movie on Netflix titled Worth. WORTH. This is a historical movie. I don't know if it's historical, but it's based on true events, and it stars Michael Keaton, Stanley Tucci, Amy Ryan, amongst others, and it's about the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. And I don't know if you guys remember the name Kenneth Feinberg. He was in the news around this time.
No, I don't.
So there's this guy who is a lawyer for large disasters, basically. A plane goes down and he negotiates settlements for like the families of the 200 people that died in the plane crash type of thing. Like in any normal time, that's his job, essentially, is to come up with a number and mediate between two parties that have had some kind of like big disaster or big issue. And so 9/11 happens, and there's only so many law firms that do this kind of negotiation, like on a large scale. And after 9/11, like nobody wanted the job because it took like a year just to get a count of how many people died. You know what I mean? So it was like, how do you even start to figure out a number to pay to families to cover all of these, 3,000 deaths, basically. And so the lead character is a real guy played by Michael Keaton, and he and his law partner volunteer their law office to do all this mediation for free because at that time people were rah-rahing America, and that was like their way to give back, was like, if we're involved in this mediation, we're not taking a piece of it. You know what I mean? The government's not paying us. Maybe that will make the best possible situation for the victims of 9/11 type of thing, the surviving family members. And so it's a drama with Michael Keaton at the center, and he's kind of this insensitive guy at the beginning of it, and then over the course of the movie he becomes more in touch with the job he has. You know what I mean? Like before, it's all about negotiations and getting the best deal for the victim while also not bankrupting a company if they're the ones liable, type of thing. And so with 9/11, it was just a much bigger thing, and it was stickier, and there were firefighters who like ran into the building knowing they were probably going to die, type of stuff. Like, how do you put value on that type of thing? And then it was also a building that had janitors in it and also CEOs. And so like, how do you like another thing I didn't know, I don't want to go too into it because it's a really good movie. If you don't know anything about the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund, it's also an education in how they did that. And that part of it alone was interesting, on top of the performances being good. But the movie puts forth that like the reason why the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund existed is because basically if 90% of the people who would have been paid because they had a family member who died in 9/11, if 90% or more didn't sign up, then the fund would have failed, and all of those people would have had to sue individually, and most of them couldn't afford the lawyer. And so this was the only way to make sure that the vast majority got something, basically. And So you have people in the movie who are like destitute, and then you have millionaires who are threatening to not participate in the fund because they have the money for a lawyer and can get like millions. And so it's like an interesting portrayal of just the different types of people that worked in that building. Anyway, it's a good drama, and you should check it out if you're interested.
Nice.
Cool. My number 5 is a 2021 animated film called The Spine of Night. And this is a medieval fantasy film, kind of in the vein of movies like Heavy Metal from 80s and Fire and Ice. And there's some more connections to those two, which I'll get into. But this is about a pagan swamp witch voiced by Lucy Lawless, who has a coat made of this magical plant, and it gets stolen from her, and it's her kind of recounting the story of the journey that this magical plant is going on and how it's affecting this medieval fantasy land where there's ancient gods being awakened and sorcerers and kind of all of that trippy Dungeons and Dragons fantasy things you can think of are all within this movie. Now this is definitely an adult-oriented animated film. This is not kid-friendly whatsoever. Like for example, the Lucy Lawless character is naked through the entire movie, whether she's in the swamp or on a mountain. She is naked, animated, but still no clothes whatsoever. There is also a lot of violence in this movie. So when they show battles, there's people being, limbs being hacked off, faces being opened up, things like that. It's definitely, even for animated films, a violent movie. But what I really enjoyed about this was the animation style, because this is actually a rotoscoped movie, which is a form of animation that we rarely see anymore. I know you guys know this, but just for people who are not familiar, rotoscoping is a style of animation where you actually film actors and then you trace over them to animate. So the animation itself is very fluid looking. And then within that, you can add things like dragons and gods and all this other crazy stuff. But the people characters kind of move like actual humans because they are traces of human actors. It was a style of animation that was probably most popular in the 70s and the 80s. Heavy Metal and Fire and Ice are two examples of rotoscope movies. Also, wasn't there a Lord of the Rings adaptation in the 70s that was rotoscoped? Yeah. Yep. So I would say it's not an animation style for everyone. It definitely looks a little dated because it's an older style, but for a bit of that nostalgia, I thought it was kind of cool. And then they were able to bring in some of those crazy fantasy elements of like, you know, galaxies opening up within a person and a lot of those trippy elements that I would expect to see from a movie like this. So this movie is not for everyone. Zach, I don't think you would enjoy this movie whatsoever, just based on the content of it. But I do think if one can handle a violent fantasy movie that's not perfect, there's still a lot to enjoy in this movie.
Nice. Okay, my number 4 is from 1982, I think. Directed by Alan Parker, and it's Pink Floyd's The Wall.
What?
I watched this because it came up last week.
Yeah.
And I'd heard about this film and I knew about the album, but I never listened to the music and I knew nothing about the movie whatsoever. And so I was curious, and so I checked it out. And have you guys seen The Wall?
Mm-hmm.
In college, been a while.
James?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so this movie is crazy. It's absolutely bonkers, but like really well done.
I mean, it's just like a music video. It's like a series of music videos.
It is absolutely a concept kind of long form music video for sure. But with a lot going on, like there's animated sequences and there's all these jump cuts that like you are not expecting, but like work really well. And the way that they like they'll show a scene, but then every time they cut, they'll change something. So like in the span of 10 seconds, things have changed dramatically, but like you never quite got a sense of when that change happened. It's very cleverly done. This was my first exposure to Pink Floyd, to a large degree. I realized there's 2 songs by them that I had heard before.
Okay.
One was Comfortably Numb.
Yep.
And then the other one was Brick in the Wall. And I probably have heard of that because of you, Kyle, in high school. Just the We Don't Need No Education thing.
Yeah. And I was dabbling into Pink Floyd at the end of high school.
Sure. I would say besides those 2 songs, Pink Floyd does not seem like the type of music that I would listen to, mostly because, and this is from an outsider perspective, it seems like this is the music you listen to if you're high. Like that you should be on drugs while you listen to Pink Floyd to get the most out of it. It just that's what it seems like, because it's very much like a vibe, and most of it there's not, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like it would be very well enhanced to be on like drugs while you listen to Pink Floyd or watch this movie for that matter. Although that'd probably be a bad time, I think. The movie's crazy, but super well shot. Like it's actually really competently shot. Any one scene, I could watch a movie shot like it's shot. You know, like it looks better than most movies did from the early 80s, I think. Lighting wise and that kind of thing. It's pretty fascist. I think that's the theme. That's a running theme, is fascism, but there's a lot of fascist imagery in this movie. It's just it's a weird, strange movie, but I think worth watching. I had a good time with it.
I mean, I think Pink Floyd definitely has the reputation as far as like being a drug band or a band that drugs might enhance. But Rush also is definitely in that category too, I would say.
I think Rush has more going on with the music that you could enjoy. Like,
I'll agree with that.
Whereas Pink, yeah.
I don't know.
But I also think sonically they're very similar. Like lots of, droned out guitars and soundscapes and, stuff like that.
The Wall is probably Pink Floyd's best known album, but I don't think it's their best. It's kind of bloated. And I think if you were to listen to Dark Side of the Moon, maybe that's their best known. It's a toss up, I think, between those 2. Dark Side of the Moon or Wish You Were Here, or even something like more weird, like Disc 2 of Ummagumma, you can find a lot more going on musically. I never got into The Wall, the album itself, as much as those other ones.
When you were doing the top 100 albums, Zach, was Rush and Pink Floyd not on there anywhere?
Well, the thing is, we haven't finished that yet.
Okay.
We stopped at Jimi Hendrix.
They may have been on there somewhere.
Oh, so you stopped like
for sure.
mid 60s, late 60s. You haven't quite got into Pink Floyd.
No,
yet.
I mean it's a top 100 list, but are you listening to them chronologically?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's chronological, so we can see the evolution of music through there. But we stopped because the guy I was doing it with had a kid, and then we just have never restarted. Although we definitely plan to. And then, actually inspired by Pink Floyd's The Wall, I created a separate list, the 150 greatest artists list, because I thought it'd be fun. What if you spent like 2 days and listened to nothing but the entire discography of an artist?
That's going to take you more than 2. Oh, of one artist. Okay.
One artist. Yeah, one artist. So in a year, you could go through the 150 greatest artists. Just by like, all you listen to is like everything that, Pink Floyd put out in those 2 days, kind of a thing. It would definitely give you a sense of them. And you could at least know who you want to follow up with or not. Now I'd rather do Music 101 first, but that intrigued me at the time, at least fun enough to make the list.
You sent me that list, Zach, of the 150 greatest artists. And I'm just thinking, like, if you go through that alphabetically, and listen to their entire discography, that's a lot of AC/DC that you're front loading for yourself. And I think after you hear like 4 or 5 AC/DC songs, especially the Bon Scott or not, yeah, the Brian Johnson. Wow, what are the
Right.
yeah, whatever the bad singer is, the one who I don't like, the Back in Black guy. You're gonna get really tired of that very quickly.
Well, here's the thing. If it's an artist you don't care for, the most you could do is 2 days, right? Because then it's time to move on to, whoever's next, Adele, and then they're one of the 10 greatest bands of all time by like a
Oh,
lot of
I know.
people's measure. And so if they can't stand more than 4 songs, then
They're just like the most boring. I'm using quotation marks metal band out there. I find it. I can listen to some early AC/DC, but you get into that Brian Johnson era, and it's just all sounds the same. And oh my goodness, can't do it.
All right. My number 4 is a documentary titled Some Kind of Heaven. This is on Hulu. It's the documentary that takes place in the Villages in Florida. It's the one about the
I want to watch
old
that.
people community. And it's good. I gave it a 4. This is where my movies go from 3.5 and below up into 4s and higher. And Some Kind of Heaven is definitely a 4. I will say that if you're looking for like an expose on like how crazy the Villages is, that is not this movie. I would say this is a movie about 4 people who live in the Villages and their motivations for moving to the Villages and how the community is and is not fulfilling their motivations. And it definitely has some pretty tragic moments in it. Tragic, not in like a crazy life altering sense, just like a unfulfilled life kind of sense. And so it's less about just how crazy the Villages is and more about these people's specific experience at the Villages and kind of more about death and people who are close to it who are trying to do anything but think about that for the most part. You know what I mean? Like they know it's there. There's an unspoken that it's around the corner, and some of them feel like this is their last hurrah, and some of them are very aware that it's their last hurrah and want to make the most out of it. And that doesn't necessarily mean party. They don't really know what it means. They just know that they were sold it. Like if you come to the Villages, this will make your life complete, and that's not how things work in real life. So but it's really well shot. It's 4:3 aspect. I don't know how sure some of it is like not necessarily staged, but they had people walk by the pool again to make sure they got the shot. It's very artistically done. I would say. And it's all in the moment stuff for the most part, and I enjoyed it. My number 4.
All right.
It's produced by Darren Aronofsky.
Really
Interesting.
nice.
My number 4 is the last 2021 movie on my list. This is the aforementioned Pig. I know we're gonna do a little spoiler section on this, so I'll just kind of give my quick thoughts on it. This movie was sold to me as like John Wick with a pig, and there's definitely parallels where you have Nicolas Cage playing this mysterious loner with his truffle hunting pig that gets stolen, and then he goes on a journey into a world he used to be a part of that has his own kind of weird rules to get the pig back. And there is one moment where you think like we're going full weird John Wick revenge thriller moment.
Right.
But it kind of steered away from that, and I enjoyed that. I like that we're kind of in this mysterious other world, but we weren't going, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, kill whoever I need to get my pig back. And I really I really liked the resolution of this movie and how Nicolas Cage's character used his specific set of skills to bring the story to a close. and I thought it was kind of a beautiful moment. And then as for Nicolas Cage himself, his acting was some of the best I've seen from him. He does have one or two Nicolas Cagey moments, but if you're looking for, if you like weird Cage and over the top Cage, you're not going to get that in this one. He's definitely a much more subtle and serious performance from him. And I liked his little team up with Alex Wolff as they're driving around Portland, going to these various locales. So I like the message of this movie. I like the resolution. This movie just really resonated with me. And it's 90 minutes. Like, it tells a complete story in an hour and a half. And especially this year when we've watched so many movies that have been 2+ hours, I appreciate the efficiency of this movie.
Sure.
Zach?
James?
Me?
No, Zach.
Me.
Zach.
Me. All right.
Zach and I are just staring at each other.
Like, you go. No, you go.
My number 3 has already been mentioned. It's Spencer, the Kristen Stewart film. I don't have much to add to James, except I would add this is a little bit of a horror film.
It has shades. I agree.
Yeah. Like spending a couple days with her, and she's just tortured on the inside. And then there's some like fantasy elements to it where there's scenes where she's like, imagining like these horrific kind of, Cronenberg types things. And I don't know, it sets a tone that I thought was super interesting. So I thought that Jackie was super well acted, but felt a little bit sterile to me, whereas this one didn't feel as sterile. It felt much more emotional to me. So I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think maybe that's because Jackie Onassis is maybe like a more reserved person.
Mm-hmm.
She was a very controlled person.
Right. And I think Diana was too, but I think at this point, the way they're depicting her, she was over being controlled for the most part. But also she wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I thought that was the most interesting part of the movie is like different person would have been like, yeah, I'm going to run to the tabloids and tell all, and I'm not going to show up for Christmas dinner and I'm not going to play the part. And she kind of does reluctantly, but she gets there because she respects throne, even if she doesn't, want to be a part of it or be a part of the family. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
My number 3, the aforementioned pig. Don't have much to add until we get to spoilers, other than I really enjoyed it. Much like Joe, this is a very specific version of Nicolas Cage. When it works very well. It works well in Joe. It works well in this. I liked it, the subversion of the revenge film. Like the movie completely sets you up for this movie to go to one place and instead it goes to another. And even though the result is the same, kind of, it takes you down a different path, and I like that. And it's my number 3.
Nice.
Oh, me.
Kyle?
We totally lost the thread on this one. My number 3 is Reality Bites from 1994. And this is the quintessential Gen X movie that I had to check out and I really enjoyed. It's starring Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, and Ben Stiller. I think Steve Zahn's also in this movie, but those 3 are kind of the central characters. Winona Ryder and Ethan Hawke are recent. Oh, Jeannie Garofalo. How could I forget? She's in this movie too.
Doesn't Ben Stiller direct it?
I believe Ben Stiller directed this. Yes,
Yeah.
You're right. So Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, Jeannie Garofalo, Steve Zahn are all recent college graduates who are directionalists. They don't really kind of know what to do now that they have graduated from college. They're sort of just hanging out, working dead end jobs. Winona Ryder is making little short videos and the kind of recording her and her friends always hanging out. And she meets Ben Stiller, who is a TV, not executive, but he works for a TV station. He's sort of kind of playing the yuppie role. And they start a relationship and he's trying to get her her work on air. But there's also a bit of a love triangle with Ethan Hawke also, and sort of the back and forth between them. So this was more of a not a romantic comedy, but more of a romance movie than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more of a hangout movie, and there definitely is. The love triangle is a central part of this movie, but I really enjoyed just hanging out with these characters. Winona Ryder is an actress who I thought annoyed me, and maybe as a kid she did, but recently I've been like revisiting her work or seeing her in Stranger Things, and I'm kind of coming around to her as an actress and appreciating what she can do. Ethan Hawke is great as always. Like I've nothing bad to say about him. He's wonderful in this movie. Uh, but what stood out to me was the soundtrack. And I think this movie has a famous soundtrack, and I was expecting it to be all like early 90s hits. And it was actually, I mean, stuff from the 90s, but also stuff from the 80s and 70s, because it's the music that these characters listened to growing up. And like, if you imagine, if you know, go to a 24-year-old and look at their collection, it's not all going to be just whatever is popular in the moment. It's the kind of movie music from the last 10, 15 years of their life. And I think a lot of times we see movies about teenagers or college kids and like they're only listening to what's popular in the moment because it makes for a good pop jukebox soundtrack. But the fact that this movie like recognized that these young adults would be listening to music from the last 15 years of their life, not just from what was popular in 1994, really grounded the movie for me and made it feel even more lived in a real world. So I was surprised by Reality Bites and really enjoyed it.
Great. That's cool. Okay, my number 2 and number 1 are movies that I really liked a lot. But my number 2, I really liked it, but with one big reservation. So it's two 2021s. The Last Duel by Ridley Scott. Have either of you seen The Last Duel yet?
I have. It did not make my list just because it fell off. It wasn't in the last 10, but I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
I haven't seen yet. Is it streaming yet? Has it been out for a while?
Yeah, you can get a hold of this.
Okay.
I forget where I watched it. The Last Duel is awesome. If you like knights and, you know, castles and medieval kings and stuff like that, it is great. It is absolutely a stellar period piece from like I think the 1300s. Either 1300s or 13th century, I don't remember which, but you know, in a way that Ridley Scott is just so good at, right? And this is like there's you know, it's about the last duel, right? It wasn't actually the last duel that was in France, but it was one of the last ones. Anyways, when you actually watch the duel, it is the best jousting scene I've ever seen on film. It's so good and feels so real and so visceral. It's insane. The story is kind of a Rashomon deal where it tells the same events from 3 different perspectives. One from Matt Damon's character, who's a kind of a squire from a wealthy, well-known family, but they're low on their luck cash-wise. The other is Adam Driver, who's a squire who's kind of befriended by the local duke or whatever, and he's kind of like the favored child kind of a thing. And then the third one is Jodie Comer, and she plays Matt Damon's wife, who accuses Adam Driver of raping her. And so the movie presents like basically, you know, a decade of their lives, but from each one of their perspectives. And it is just super cleverly well done. The little changes in acting and plot and dialogue and stuff like that changes between perspective. It's very satisfying to watch, and I thought it was great. Even Ben Affleck's in it, and he's hilarious, like as just this, as a character. He's a small part of the movie, but he's very funny.
It's crazy that like in Batman he plays this big, huge, bruising guy, and then in this movie he looks so small and like weak, and
Yeah.
But you give the guy a blonde haircut with like a blonde bowl cut, and he just totally changes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. My reservation about the film is so the central, um, you know, plot is that she's accusing Adam Driver of raping her. And so they revisit that 3 times in the film. And each time it becomes more and more uncomfortable to watch, to the point where by the 3rd time, I felt wrong watching a male directed film about the subject matter, and then it just spends so much time dealing with it. I just was very uncomfortable, and it's supposed to make you uncomfortable, but I don't know. I didn't want to spend that much time with their 3 perspectives of the rape kind of a thing. But apart from that, the movie is very, very well done and looks beautiful, and like so much of it is well acted, well written, well script, well everything. So yeah, I really like The Last Duel.
I generally agree. Like the what you described in the rape scenes, I thought they did a good job of like giving her the last word. And
They did.
I think they kind of laid out that her version was the more definitive version. You know what I mean? Like in a way, they don't come out and say that, but the details of the recollection from the Adam Driver character don't line up the way the details in her telling of it line up. And then they go to lengths at the end to bring up the point that like what she has to go through for making the accusation is not worth anything. Like
Agreed. Yeah.
it's an unwinnable game for her basically.
Yeah.
So why would she ever accuse him unless it actually happened, type of thing. And so I thought they did a good job of. I'll agree, especially if you're sensitive to that type of topic. That's what this movie's about. It's 3 different perspectives about a rape that like triggers other events, but that's the trigger. And so if you're sensitive to those, you probably shouldn't watch this. But I thought the movie did a good job of making it fairly clear that she was the one telling the truth.
No, I totally agree. It's just by making it fairly clear, it was very uncomfortable to watch.
Sure. Yep. Did you watch this with anybody?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And I later listened to a podcast completely separate from the film just about this part of history.
Mhm.
It was put out before the movie even came out. And it was incredible how much of the minor details were accurate in this film. I think he went to great lengths to get very specific details correct.
Interesting.
This is one I
Cool.
need to check out before next week.
Yeah.
Probably. My number 2 is a 4.5 movie for me. Shiva, baby. I think that's how you say it. Shiva? Sitting Shiva? How do you say it?
It's probably Shiva.
Shiva. So, this is a comedy / drama. Mostly comedy, though, I would say. Starring Rachel Sennett, Molly Gordon, Polly Draper, Fred Melamed, and directed and written by Emma Seligman. It's about this girl who's probably 22, 23, something like that. She's right around like the age that people would graduate college and go on to graduate school type of thing. And she is Jewish and she has a sugar daddy. So this is a guy that she has relations with that gives her nice, expensive items. And he doesn't know much about her and she doesn't know much about him. And that's how they like the relationship. And so she, at the beginning of the movie, is told by her overbearing parents that she needs to go to this Shiva, which is like a wake for non-Jewish people. And so she goes there, and who shows up but her sugar daddy. And so the rest of the movie is her trying to maintain any kind of mystery she had with this guy. Like both mystery as far as like she doesn't want to know about his life. Like part of the allure of this relationship. Part of the allure of him paying her, you know what I mean, is like she doesn't know where this money comes from or anything like that, or she doesn't know anything about this guy, and he doesn't know anything about her. And so now she's realizing that their circles connect in different ways. And it's just a series of unfortunate events, I would say, for her over the course of this hour and a half movie, all of which takes place, except for like the first 5 minutes. The rest of the movie takes place at the event itself. And I found it to be very funny and interesting. The lead performance, I, I'll see whatever she's in next, no matter what it is, because it was that good.
I haven't seen it.
I've heard this movie come up a lot recently. I think it came out earlier in the year.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I saw it on streaming. I think
Okay.
it's not like Amazon or something like that. It's out there.
It's out there. Cool.
It's easy to find.
Another one to try and check out. It's gonna be a busy week. Trying to cram as many as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of watching 2021 movies, I was watching 1981's Thief by Michael Mann, my number 2.
I mean, that's a good movie.
It is a great movie. So these number 2 and number 1 are both 4.5 potential 5-star movies for me as time goes by. Thief is starring James Caan. He plays a master safecracker, a thief, the illegal kind. He's not doing this, for good reasons. He's doing it to steal things inside the safe. But he's one of the best in the business. Him and Jim Belushi playing a non-comedic role as his partner. And James Caan he has the dream of the perfect life. It kind of reminded me of Collateral, wasn't it? Jamie Foxx, who kind of had this dream of like his perfect life he wanted to get out of driving the cab. Didn't Jamie Foxx have like a postcard or something in his cab he always would look at of like how I'm gonna get out of driving my cab and move on from this?
And you remember very different things about Collateral than I do.
Well, I mean, I remember other things about Collateral also, but I seem to remember Jamie Foxx had this fixation on a postcard.
I don't remember that, but it's very possible.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, James Caan, Master Safecracker, has a vision board. Like, he has a collage of all these things he wants, which I think is great that in 1981, this guy was making a vision board of what his life's going to look like. And so that involves, he meets a woman, he wants to marry her, start a family, but he needs one last big score to have this perfect life he wants. And he enters a relationship with a gangster who has the line on the perfect score, but needs James Caan's skills to get in there. So they kind of enter an agreement, and James Caan pulls off the score, and of course the gangster's like, well, we're not done. He's like, I've got more jobs I want you to do, and James Caan doesn't want to do those. And that's kind of then the crux of the film is, how do I get out of this gangster life? And it's directed by Michael Mann. It is incredible, his direction. It's like that perfect noir look that he can capture, but also the cinematography is beautiful. He really shows like the big safe crack, goes into detail about how they're going to do it, and like there's sparks flying, there's these great colors, the lighting is amazing. Like, it's a beautiful movie to watch. James Caan is incredible. There is some violence. There's not a lot of it, but like when a gun is shot, it is violent, it is bloody. So like Michael Mann doesn't shy away from that. But what I found most upsetting was the gangster was played by Robert Prosky, who you would recognize as Mr. Lundy from Mrs. Doubtfire, the guy who owned the TV station, who gave what's his name? Robin Williams' character.
Williams.
Thank you. Yes. The TV station owner who was very kind and gentle and gave Robin Williams a chance to be on TV. Well, this same actor is now playing this violent, vicious, sometimes racist gangster. So to see this actor, who I really know as being one person from one role, to see him playing the exact opposite character in a different movie was just jarring. But it goes to show, that's what acting is and how good of an actor he is, where he can convince me that he is both people.
I've never heard of this movie.
What? You have to. I've talked about it in a top 10 last 10, but that's okay. That was probably a long time ago.
It doesn't have the most memorable title.
Yeah. This might be my new favorite Michael Mann movie. Like, this might go over Heat, which is...
It has a more memorable poster than it has a memorable title, I would say.
I would agree, yeah.
Like, if you spend time on Letterboxd, you'll see the poster come up over and over and over again because people like
Really?
Thief. Yeah.
What's the poster?
I like how
it's got like a
Thief,
neon silhouette of James Caan wearing welding glasses with Thief written in neon above it.
It looks like an 80s poster
Yeah.
type of thing. There's a scene in Thief where, and you saw it recently, Kyle, so my memory is weird on this, but like he's kind of like hanging upside down in a roof and he's like changing wires from like one spot to another or like something like that.
Oh, I think that was even Jim Belushi was doing that.
Yeah. And it's just, it keeps going. Like they're literally showing him move one wire after another. Like, and it's totally engrossing to watch him do this because if he screws it up, like they're done basically. But most movies would not have the patience to just show the process of this guy transferring these wires. And yet this movie literally slows to a crawl at times to show you a part of the process of them breaking in or, whatever it is.
Yeah, they have to like reroute a alarm or something like that. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, this movie it's half crime procedural about how we can pull off this heist, and then have gangster movie of how do we deal with now these crime bosses we've gotten in bed with.
Right.
I've seen 8 Michael Mann films. That's a third of his films.
Mhm.
And none of them do I love. I like some and I don't like others, but there's none that I really love a lot.
Name
Do you
the
think I'll
8
like
you've
Thief?
seen.
I've seen Last of the Mohicans, Heat, The Insider, Hancock, Collateral, Ford v Ferrari, The Kingdom, and The Aviator.
Hancock?
Hancock.
Yeah.
Wait.
Will
Oh, these
Smith.
these are films he produced.
Okay, yeah, he did not direct Hancock.
Well, he had a heavy hand on it, I feel like.
Well, I would say this is closest to Heat, but not like Heat at all. In a weird way.
This
He
is
didn't direct half of those that I just read, by the way.
this is more stylistic than Heat.
Okay.
And it's more
Like-
procedural than Heat.
Yes.
I feel.
Yeah. I mean, Heat has classic moments, especially like the city shootouts and the conversation between Pacino and Robert De Niro. But Heat is 3 hours long. It there is a little bloat to Heat. Do you remember one time, Zach, you and I kind of just fast forwarded to the good parts?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, and Thief does not have the bloat that Heat does.
But it does have scenes where you just watch it moving wires around slowly.
Yeah, but
But
it's
it works in
narratively
this context.
right. It's
Sure.
tension,
Yeah.
Sure.
right? It's like
yeah.
it's like a man escaped. Right? You
Heat
get
has
the
those
tension
two
of watching them
scenes.
go through it.
Heat has those 2 scenes, but the rest of it is pretty boring.
He's got an amazing opening scene. The very first heist with the cement trucks and the ambulance and everything.
It's fine.
It's better than fine.
Kyle, did you watch the theatrical or the director's cut of Thief?
Oh, great. I'm assuming I don't know. Tell me
Okay.
the difference.
Were there slow motion scenes in the film?
I don't remember.
Okay.
If there were, they didn't stand out to me as anything as special.
I got you. Okay. I think this is like, from my brief research, it seems like people prefer the theatrical cut.
Okay. If I was given a choice, I tend to err theatrical, but I'll do some quick research and say which one should you watch.
Sure. Okay, my number 1, which I loved and I recommend to anyone, is on Disney Plus. It's a 2021 documentary called The Rescue. And this is a film about the 2018 rescue of those Thai soccer boys that got stuck in a cave. Do you remember this? They got stuck in a cave, and then the cave filled with water and they couldn't get out. And so for like 2 weeks, divers are looking for them and then finding them and then trying to figure out how to get them out of the cave. And it is this documentary is so harrowing. It's incredibly engrossing and intense. Even though you know what happens, right? Because we all remember that from like the news. But you just get to see every step of the process and talk to the guys that did it. And it's just so interesting and gripping. And there's like twice in the movie where I got emotional, especially like when they pop up and find the boys for the first time. They have footage of that because they had a camera with them. And so like they're seeing these boys after they've been lost for like 12 days. It's so good. And yeah, the filmmaking is really great, and there's a lot to the story that I didn't know, because I didn't follow it incredibly closely. So a lot of the details that make it much more nerve wracking, I didn't know at all. But you absolutely get the sense that they're not like hyping it up at all. It seems like this is a pretty straight telling of what happened, and mostly because I trust uh, the film's directors. They're the same ones that did Free Solo, which is a movie that I absolutely loved from a couple years ago. And so they know how to tell a documentary for sure. But yeah, The Rescue, it's really easy to watch. It's on Disney Plus. It's super good, and yeah, I liked it a ton.
Yeah, I remember this happening, and I remember there being weren't there multiple attempts or multiple plans to try and get these kids out of the cave?
Well, so the problem is they were very far back in the cave,
Mhm.
and this was a very dangerous thing because there was constantly water going into the cave, right? So it was like monsoon season in Thailand, and so the water was rising all the time, and then there was a current that they had to like swim against through like tight areas. So like actually the Thai special forces, like the Navy SEALs in Thailand, they were failing utterly
Mhm.
at it, and eventually they said, like, we need people that just are the best in the world at cave diving. And so they got like hobbyists from England that are like just middle-aged men who do this on the weekend who are just the best in the world at it. And they had to do all the work because the Navy SEALs just didn't have the skills needed for this very particular rescue mission. And then, you know, they had to get these boys out, and they were like, should we drill into them from above? Like, because if you're not experienced with this, as soon as you go underwater with an air tank and you're going through these very tight spaces for like a mile, you're going to panic and drown. I mean, there's no way for a novice to do this without going into utter panic. And so they're like, how are we going to get, you know, more than a dozen boys out safely?
Yeah.
It's really a unique problem that has never been solved before, and it was awesome. And yeah, so I love this movie.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah,
I'm into it.
it's called The Rescue.
How many? What's the percentage on talking head in the moment footage?
Um, most of the talking head is over in the moment footage. So
Okay.
so there's a lot of people talking, but you're watching footage. There is reenactment stuff, but it's almost always by the people that were doing it the first time.
Hmm.
And you wouldn't even think it's reenactment. I mean,
Hmm.
it's people in a water. So like if they're talking about they go back to the cave and swim through it, and it looks exactly like it would have looked then, and it's the people doing it. I mean, so
Cool.
it's really well done, and there's nothing cheesy about it.
Sure. All right. My favorite film of the last 10 that I watched is a Mexican French thriller titled New Order, which was great. Zach recommended his number one for everybody. I am not going to recommend this for everybody because it is a very violent movie, I would say. And so if violence bothers you, you should not watch this movie. I mean, not that it's like, super gratuitous or anything, but the premise is there's society, there's different classes of people in Mexico, and there's the rich, and then there's everybody else. And the rich are the movie starts and you're kind of like in the middle of a bunch of protests by the poorer class who are upset about I don't know, corruption, government issues, and the rich keep get richer and the poor can barely feed themselves, type of thing. And so they're in the middle of like massive protests and things like that. And this family who is very wealthy uh, are having a wedding, basically. And they decide that even amidst these protests, they're still going to have the wedding. And so they have the wedding, and about halfway through the wedding, the protest becomes like an all out, I don't know, what would you call it? Like when the French, um, remember
The
when
French Revolution.
yeah, like remember when the French like chopped the heads off of all the um, uh,
The
royalty?
the upper class.
Yeah, I forget the
Yeah,
name of that event. Is that the French Revolution?
it's a revolution. Yeah.
Okay. So it becomes a full-blown revolution where basically like if you're wealthy or you have a specific last name, because only these specific last named people are like in this class, uh a crowd of people will just beat the crap out of you or kill you in the middle of the street, type of thing. And so they start hearing these reports at like the wedding, basically the after party for the wedding, rather, or it might be the day before the wedding. I think it is like the day before the wedding. So it's like the rehearsal party. There's easily though like 150 rich people at this party. And so the whole movie is like just rich people getting murdered, I would say. It's like a zombie movie, but the zombies are poor people who are just tired of rich people and will scale the walls and kill everybody and steal anything they can, type of thing. And evidently the movie, according to the Wikipedia article, is pretty controversial in Mexico because it does not make a whole lot of attempts to explain why poor people are so angry. I think you kind of have to insinuate like a lot of the things that I've just insinuated about the movie, or like what their motivations might be. But it's kind of like a fictional what if. Like, what if the class divide gets so bad that people are just like, we're done with rich people.
Does the
Period.
movie pick a side?
It does not pick a side. There is a main character of the movie, the bride to be, and they definitely go to efforts to make her one of the good rich people. She's still a rich person, so she still has moments of insensitivity, but by the end of it, she's definitely getting, things are being done to her that she does not deserve just because she's rich. I mean, none of these rich people, for the most part, as depicted in the movie, deserve to be murdered. But it's an interesting thought experiment. Like, what if the French Revolution happened today? What if people literally took to the street and just overran palaces and pulled people out of the front door? You know what I mean?
By the way, the thing you were talking about for the French Revolution is the Reign of Terror.
Okay.
The specific event.
Yeah. But that was when? 200 years ago?
Yeah.
16?
More than that, but yeah.
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 400.
No.
Yeah, so
700?
what-
Past the 16s.
So what would
it
that
was
look
near the American Revolution.
what would that look like in like a modern setting? That's what New Order is. And it's pretty brutal, but very riveting, I would say. Just watching like chaos essentially on a big level. And it kind of being a zombie movie without zombies, and all the weird French Mexican touches that are in the movie. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of like The Hunt, maybe
Mhm.
here in the US. Remember how The Hunt kind of seems like a movie that like only Americans would like fully understand, or I don't know. And I think this one was made for maybe it's a weird combo too, like Mexican French. It's just not the combo of producing partners that I
Yeah.
typically see in movies. So I don't know if like a French person had this idea and then decided to make it in Mexico and kind of make an allusion to like what happened in France 300-400 years ago. But that's kind of what this movie feels like, and I enjoyed it. It's really well made, but again, it's a lot of dying and like torture and stuff like that.
Okay.
It sounds. I'm intrigued, but I could definitely get turned off if there's too much torture and violent misery.
I mean, I don't like
It's not-
Hostel or
Yeah.
the Saw movies. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like a horror hound or like a gore whore. Is that a wrong term to say? I'm none of those
Well,
things.
we said it.
I'm none of those things, and I could handle the things that this movie shelled out. But I understand that it's a very dark movie,
Yeah.
and that there's not a whole lot of winning on anybody's terms in this movie, and so you just have to be ready for those things.
Cool.
Cool. All right, my number one is a 1965 spy thriller called The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. This is based on a novel by the same name by Jean Le Carre, who's famous for the George Smiley novels like Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy. George Smiley is actually a minor character in this movie itself. So it's definitely in that same vein of spy movies. This is starring Richard Burton, who plays a CIA operative who is on the West Berlin side of the Berlin Wall just after its construction. And he is kind of failing at bringing people across the border. That's kind of his job, and he's not doing a great job at it. And he's starting, the CIA, or not the CIA, because sorry, this is not CIA, this is British, so it's MI6, correct? Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, whatever the British version of the CIA is, MI6. So Control, who's the head of the MI6, which I think is, by the way, is a super cool idea that whoever is in charge of the British secret agency is always called Control. That's like their name, no matter who it is. I think it's a really cool concept. That's true to actually how it works. Anyway, I just want it to be called Control, have that name. Control decides that we're gonna put you on a mission where you're gonna pretend to retire. We're gonna pretend that you're disgruntled, and then the Russians, the Communist Party, the East Berliners are gonna then try and recruit you, thinking you're a double agent, but you're really gonna be a triple agent feeding back and forth. And there's more plot to it than that. So it's this very dense plot of him going undercover and trying to extract information, but also not really trusting either side. As the deeper he goes into this conflict, this Cold War. At the same time, he also kind of gets an innocent woman involved, and she doesn't quite understand the whole story or what his cover is, and she gets involved in it too. I'm doing a bad job of describing this movie because it's so plot heavy, and I don't want to you can definitely, there's twists in terms of things to give away from it. But what I love about this movie is it's a talking spy movie. So I'll watch a James Bond. I love Mission Impossible movies. Those are fun. There are spy action movies where the idea is like we have to use running and guns and parachutes to solve our problems. And this is, in that Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy genre where it is just about talking and information and asking questions that you know the answer to already to find out what the other person is actually up to. It's also a dark spy movie too. It kind of ends in a dreary place, to put it that way. But
Mm.
I was engrossed the whole time, both by the plot itself, which is dense but very intriguing, and also the Richard Burton performance. I know him more as being the one-time wife of Cleopatra. I can't think of her name. One-time husband of.
Was she on Arrested Development eventually?
No,
No, her
no.
mom was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, what's Liz Taylor,
Liz Taylor.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they're in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf together.
Yeah.
But I know him more as the husband of Liz Taylor. So to see him, or just know him through that movie that they were in together. So to see him on his own, he really is an incredible actor. And if you like dense, talky spy thrillers, The Spy Who Came in from the Cold is totally worth checking out, and you'll get engrossed in it.
Sweet.
Nice. What year?
1965. So this movie was made, I think, 3 years after it's supposed to be set. Berlin Wall was maybe built like 62, early 60s.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, that's it for this week's top 10, last 10. We appreciate you guys listening. We're going to continue the conversation after the theme music at the end of the podcast rolls. We will be talking Pig spoilers, or spoilers for the movie Pig, rather. And so if you haven't seen that movie, hit pause at the end of the podcast and come back to it after you've seen Pig. If you have seen Pig and you want to hear some spoilers, stick around. Also, we need to mention that if you haven't found us on YouTube yet, definitely go there, search Cinereelists, REE with an L, with or without an S on the end.
That totally messed you up.
Also, support us on Patreon, leave us an Apple Podcast review, or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, or send us a tweet, Instagram mention, a TikTok like, or a Facebook comment. Any of those kinds of things. Oh, a tweet. Yeah, also a tweet. You could leave any of those types of things on our social media accounts on any of those services at Cinereelists, or you can tweet or letterbox me at YoJRB.
You can find me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
Next week, we will be running down our top 20 favorite films that were released in 2021 that we were able to see. And then the week after, we'll be doing the Hangover episodes. So send in your top 10 to top 20 to heyguys@cinerealists.com. Get included in that Hangover episode listener top 20 aggregate. Stick around till after the podcast for Pig spoilers. And we will see you guys next week. Until then, keep it Cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
This is spoilers for Pig, a 2021 American drama directed by Michael Sarnowski, starring Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff, mostly. And for those of you who have not seen the movie, this is a spoiler review of Pig. And so if you've not seen the movie and you don't want to know anything about it, you should just pause it right here. And if you have seen the movie, or you don't care and just want to hear us talk about a movie you've never seen, then listen on, because we're going to spoil Pig. I had no clue this was about cooking.
Yeah, same here. I was not expecting
Yeah.
this to be a chef movie.
Yeah, that he was just a world-renowned chef.
Yep, not
And not really a violent person. You know what I mean? Like there is some violence
Not
in
at
the
all.
beginning of the movie, but it's not all perpetuated on him. I mean, he does punch the other guy, right?
Are you talking about
Who does he punch?
the weird fight club or
Yeah, the Fight Club scene.
He didn't punch anyone.
no?
He never
took
punches
punches.
anybody.
No, he just took them.
He just took them.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, because he never really is aggressive in that way.
Well, he's not a fighter. He's a chef.
Right. Yeah. But they kind of lead you down the path that like even though he didn't fight back in that scene, he could have type of thing.
Well,
He was
they
just-
certainly lead you down the path that he's a John Wick
Mhm.
of their world and
Right.
could kick some butt if he wanted to, but he was not. He
No.
couldn't.
He's
Right.
the John Wick of the chef world.
Yeah, yeah. He doesn't have fighting skills.
No,
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it really is the exact setup of John Wick. Like his wife dies of a cancer of some sort, or they don't say exactly, do they? I don't remember that. But
she's just dead.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so he has been depressed, and this pig is with him, and the pig is like the only thing that gives him, hope for the future. I don't know. It's not even that. It's just it's the
It's
only
com-
thing that
it's
he likes in
companionship.
life, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's companion pig.
yeah.
And
It's a
so,
pet in a
in the movie, he's selling truffles to a guy, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Illegally?
No.
no. You can
not illegal.
He's foraging. It's legal.
Okay. So he's selling truffles to a guy, and it's a young guy, and truffles are used in cooking. I don't know anything about cooking, or I don't even know what a truffle is.
A truffle is a fungus
Why is it a truffle pig?
because the
Pigs
pig
can smell it out.
Yes, the pig can find it,
Okay.
and so some truffles are extremely hard and rare to find. So the fact that this pig can find these hard to find rare truffles, that makes them a huge commodity in the cooking world.
So
Right, because truffles are one of those things that like the fanciest of fancy meals tend to include as an ingredient.
Hmm.
Just
So-
because it's rare and hard to find. So the fact you can put it on your food is a status thing.
So you take the pig out into the woods, and
Mhm.
then you just wait for it to sniff out one, or
Like
you
a
actually
hound
train
dog.
it?
Yeah.
You actually train it to like hunt for them.
Yes.
Interesting.
But he didn't even use the pig for that. He found him himself.
Which
the
we-
pig was just a companion.
We learn at the very end.
No,
Mhm.
we learn at the beginning.
No,
We see him. No, we see
Oh.
him finding it. He eats the dirt for some reason,
Th-
and then he shows the pig where it is.
That's true. We see him do it, but then he says it. I don't. It's not. To me, it wasn't explicitly clear that he's the one finding it.
Sure.
But
Right,
later at the end, he does say,
At the end, he says, "It's not the pig, it's me."
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy who is buying truffles from him talks in front of his dad, who is like a restaurant owner / mafia guy.
I don't think he's a
not
mafia guy.
No,
He's just
he's just a bigwig in the restaurant world.
Okay. So his father hears that this pig exists, and so he sends people to steal the guy's pig. And then once he gets his pig stolen, Nicolas Cage gets his pig stolen, and now he goes on a hunt to find the pig. And you're led to believe that he will do anything and mow through people. And
Mhm.
who knows how crazy this is going to get, because he's going to get his pig back one way or another. And then I think the movie kind of slowly de-escalates that, I would say.
It does.
Like
yeah.
it kind of goes 100% into that Fight Club scenario, and then from the Fight Club scenario down, it's constantly de-escalating.
Yep.
Like just how much of a badass Nicolas Cage is. Like he's awesome in other ways, but in the way you were expecting, he's actually not that guy at all, even though he looks the part and was talking the part earlier. And that's why I liked it, was the subversion.
Mhm.
It made it far more interesting than like a budget John Wick starring Nicolas Cage, which is absolutely a movie Nicolas Cage would be in. Right?
For
He
sure.
still might be. Still might be.
Right,
Yeah, like
exactly.
there may be a sequel to this made by some D-level producer, which is, Pig 2, The Reckoning or something,
Pig in the
where it's
City?
him kicking butts to go rescue a pig or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's right. The fact that, like you said, that you think you're getting into this whole weird John Wick world where they're meeting with people who are in secret societies and no code words and no secret tunnels, that you're like, okay, wow, we're really getting into it. And then it just kind of pops up in the real world where he's just going to regular restaurants and
Mhm.
kind of moves away from that. But I liked those two key scenes. The one where he goes to the restaurant, that's where it's impossible to get a table, and he samples the food, and then he basically just tears down the chef, not in a sense of like your food is terrible, you're terrible, but in the sense of like this isn't who you are, this isn't what you want to do. Why are you trying to please these people and not essentially please yourself through your creativity, which I thought was, with just a good commentary on creativity in general.
Mhm.
I'm like, who are you making art for, whether it be food or actual art? And then that final scene where to resolve, he Nicolas Cage is finally confronting Alex Wolff's father who stole the pig and is trying to reach him, and then does it through a meal and like cooks it, because they talk about this famous meal and cooks him the meal, and that's how he reaches him. And I thought that was a beautiful ending to the movie too, and it's still the John Wick ending of I'm the best at this and I'm gonna beat you by being the best, but it's not by literally beating you, it's by cooking you this meal that brings you back, almost like Ratatouille. Right, here's this meal
Yeah.
that brings you back to a specific moment and melts your heart. And
Because am I
Opens you up.
right that the meal he has his son make is maybe a meal that him and his wife had
Mhm.
yeah,
at the restaurant before
yeah,
she
Alex
died?
Wolff talks about how his parents went on this perfect date and had this perfect meal, and they always talked about it. And Nicolas Cage was the chef of that meal, and then made that meal again at the end for the father.
Yeah.
So
I don't think he made. I think what the father ate was his son's version of it,
well,
because you see Nicolas Cage making it and teaching the son how to do it.
oh, okay,
Mhm.
So it was like his own son made the meal that's
true.
an added layer to it.
So Zach, I feel like you like this movie, but you said some things didn't like make
Oh, yeah,
sense
no.
as you went along. I'm curious to know what.
So this movie was really captivating, I thought, for sure. But it James, like you said, I enjoyed that it subverted the John Wick thing. It's just sometimes it went about it in a way that the more you learn, the less it makes sense. So for instance, that Fight Club scene. So he shows up and there's like an underground restaurant fight club for, whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly to think about, but there was. And he shows up and you think he is going to like just dominate. And then he enters the fight. He stands there and just gets completely beat up. And then as soon as the fight's over, he then goes talk to the guy and says, I want my pig. Why did he do that?
Oh, I think that's what the Fight Club was. It was essentially a chance for like the wait staff and your front of house people and your line cooks to kick the butt of a famous chef. I don't know if those chefs are being paid, but I got the impression that the people who are like basically a chef stands there and takes a beating from an underling. And that the Nicolas Cage character was famous for being able to take the best beating.
No,
Hmm.
that's not what was happening. I'll give you two reasons.
Okay, that's what I thought was happening. Good, but okay, but
One is he's famous for being the best chef that disappeared. He's not famous for being incredible at the underground fighting.
can't he be both?
But they don't
he's
say
not.
anything about him being like
He's
a
not.
legend in the
Okay,
underground
that's fine. All right,
fighting
fair,
ring.
That is you trying to piece together the clue of him doing this fight club, which doesn't make sense. There's no reason for it. The second thing is they were placing bets. What are they betting on?
I think they're betting on how many punches the guy can take, like, or how long does he stay up.
Well, then I would be, if I bet one more, I'd be mad at the guys that pulled the guy back while he's still punching him. I'd be like, no, I voted for 21 punches and you just stopped the fight at 20.
Well, did they stop the
Right, so
fight because he collapses? I don't remember the specific of the fight.
I don't remember the specifics either, but I do vaguely remember it being like, you survive in the ring, whether you fight back or not. You survive in the ring for a certain amount of time, and then you get paid. And the clock guy lets the clock go way longer on Nicolas Cage.
Mhm.
And then the payment from Nicolas Cage is like, I don't want money. I just want to know where my pig's at. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So I agree that there's not a whole lot of explanation as to why there's an underground restaurant fight club. I mean, in retrospect, I didn't question it in the moment, but now that
Me
Zach's
neither.
questioning it, I agree. It's weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I didn't question it because at the time I thought I was watching John Wick.
Yeah,
That's
the movie
probably
wanted
why
to
I didn't
swerve you.
question it
Yes.
The movie wanted to swerve
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're right. So
you. I just think everyone was shocked enough to see him. I think he could have walked right up to the guy and says, I want my pig. I don't think he had to be beat up to do it.
Mhm.
He did. He goes up to the guy and says, I want my pig. And the guy's like, we haven't seen you in a while, you know, blah, blah, blah.
No, he does all that after the fight.
No, he sees. Remember, he first goes to the guy in like a weird circus tent and says, "I want my pig," and that's when the guy says, we haven't seen you in a while, blah blah blah. And then the next thing he does is show up at the fight. So it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at the fight, but it's the scene before the fight. So that's the connective tissue between the two.
For sure. Yeah. But the guy never says, like, I'll talk to you after your fight.
No, but I think the
believe it's
insinuation
implied.
is I'm fighting, especially after he survives like the extra 2 minutes that the guy adds. He's obviously adding it because he doesn't want to give the guy the information, but because the guy just keeps getting up and like surviving it, he eventually.
He doesn't keep getting up. He goes down after like the third punch and stays on the ground.
Right, but the
It's
guy with
not
the,
like a
the guy
Homer
with the
Simpson
timer
situation.
lets it go until he's like near dead, and then he's like, "All right, I guess he earns the." You know, he makes him earn it, even if the earning.
Zach
is just
really
taking
wanted
a
the
beating.
rules of the Fight Club. He's like, you can't get
Well,
your pig till you fight.
I
No,
feel
no,
like
it's just
I feel like the fight before the what's his name?
Nicolas Cage.
The Nicolas Cage fight. The fight before the Nicolas Cage fight was like a normal fight.
Yeah.
It was like two
Yeah.
guys fighting.
Totally.
So then he's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to fight for the information on the pig. And then Nicolas Cage's character is like, okay. And then he just stands there and gets beaten. And the guy's like, well, that's not a fight. And he just lets it keep going until the guy's practically dead. And then he's like, all right, well, I mean, you did what I asked. You know what I mean? And I made it even worse for you. And now I'm going to give you the info. But he was never excited about giving him the info.
It's the cool hand
Yeah.
Luke approach to a fight. You just take a licking and keep on ticking.
Yeah, I agree that it's silly, the idea of a fight club at that moment. But as a John Wick movie, it 100% made sense in the moment. And
Right,
from
absolutely.
there on, it becomes a very different movie. It starts to not have those weird
Yeah.
things.
My complaint about it is just that I think the main reason it's there is to let you think this is a John Wick movie and then change, swerve it,
Change gears. Okay.
which is fine. But I think that's the main reason that that's there. And I think it's presented that way.
Right, but that reason doesn't bother me. I like the fact that the movie swerved me. And if that was part of the swerve, so be it.
I'm in the James camp. I don't mind that my expectations were changed as the movie went on.
Sure. And then it's just a really good chef. It's so funny. Like people, when they see him, they act like I don't know what's going to happen. Right? Like anything could happen in this moment now that I've seen him.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, am I safe? Are we all okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, he's just a really good chef that disappeared when his wife died.
So
But they all like him so much that he like disappeared. I'm sure there was some drama with him disappearing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure he was a character and then I don't know.
weren't even people saying like, "Oh, I thought you were dead"? So
Oh, sure,
it wasn't
yeah.
like, oh yeah, he's been in the woods for 20 years and he's back. It's like he disappeared off the grid. We thought this legend was just gone, and it's like seeing a ghost. So I think that's why people were so, maybe not like, what's gonna happen? Is he gonna cook or kill? But more of like, this ghost has walked into my restaurant. Is that actually him? What's he doing out here? He's it's that awe, that process of realizing that this person's still alive.
I loved the scene in the in the restaurant where he looks like a homeless man.
Uh-huh.
Everybody else is like super well dressed. It's a really nice restaurant, and I'm like, this establishment is going to throw him out because he's like a homeless guy. Like, what, they're not going to want to talk to him about whatever he's there to talk to them about.
And he's like,
And then
bleeding
like
from his head
5
the
minutes
entire
later,
movie.
he's sitting with the chef and basically just like tearing the chef's life apart, all of his accomplishments apart. You know what I mean? I was like, what just happened? Like, there's probably other clues that he's a chef that happened earlier. I mean, the fact that he was at a chef's fight club or whatever that was is probably a pretty big clue. But like, I had not made any of those connections till that guy was sitting down and he just starts talking to him, and he's like, obviously the better chef than the guy who sat down. Yeah, it was great. It's such a, I mean, they revealed the guy's a chef. It's such a nothing, but this movie does such a masterful job of building up to that moment.
It not only is a chef, and not only is he like the world's best chef, but and this is what's maybe a little slow too. He's just an incredibly principled chef.
Mhm.
Like, he's like, if you aren't doing this for the sheer love of creating food, then why bother? Like, get off the stage if you don't just remember every meal you've ever cooked for everyone. And it's like, it's like you have the most chef ethics of anyone, yet you also just gave it up and turned your back on the whole profession. You're like, it's just so silly in a way, which I get is part of the like humor of it, but it's not a comedy. And it touches on comedy, but it really wants to be a movie about grief. The scene in the bakery,
Mhm.
That
that's
was really good.
Yeah.
that is the scene of the movie, I think, as far as thematically what we're dealing with, because there's so much unsaid and there's so much subtext. The scene in the restaurant, whereas that is like a prestige scene of the film, tonally it's way off from, I think, what the movie wants to be at.
Well, I think in order to get to the bakery scene, you have to have the scene at the restaurant.
Yeah. And I wish the pig was less of a MacGuffin. We really get nothing about why he cares about the pig except for what we put into it.
Mhm.
We assume it's this like surrogate for his wife, or he lost his wife and so he put all his love into the pig and all those kind of things. That is completely on us. The movie gives us no reason why he cares about the pig.
Yeah, they're playing off the genre
Wick,
cliches
yeah.
of revenge movies,
But-
which also barely give you anything to go off of. Like the motivation in John Wick is so thin. I mean, by John Wick 3, it's not even there anymore. It's really only the first movie, and they only spend like 3 minutes before he has a puppy, and then the puppy's dead at like minute 6.
Mhm.
Spoiler
sure.
alert. So there's it's not like he spends a ton of time with his wife and you see the connection and all the other stuff. It's just,
I mean,
it's a
John
cliche
Wick-
of revenge movies.
John Wick has the moment where you see that the wife gifted the puppy to him.
Sure.
Yes.
Pig doesn't have
This-
this, but I don't need a scene where dying wife is like, I'm leaving, but here's a truffle pig instead.
I know, but it was just such a MacGuffin, even right up until the end. We have to supply 100% of why the pig's important.
And-
I mean, it should have been an Upstream Color situation where the wife's soul went into the pig. That would have been great.
It wasn't that kind of movie.
you wanted a talking pig at the end.
with Nicolas Cage, you just never know. And then at the end, I mean, where does he land? Like, I guess he looks up in the sky while the song is talking about going up, but like he's probably committing suicide.
No.
It's the stupid Birdman ending. How is it different than Birdman? Looking up, probably committed suicide. It's the exact same ending. You love Birdman.
Birdman ends a little bit differently.
I mean, you think he flew away in real life?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
This says Wikipedia, believe it or not, says a remorseful Amir drives Rob back to a diner near his forest home. Despite Amir's carelessness, Rob decides to resume his partnership with him. Returning to his forest, Rob washes his bloody face in the lake before returning to his cabin to play a tape that Lori recorded of herself singing Bruce Springsteen's I'm on Fire to him for his birthday. So why would he like resume his partnership with the other guy if he was like just planning on committing suicide?
The movie doesn't show us like him digging up more truffles and selling them. Like he tells Amir that.
But the insinuation is the pig can't be gotten back, right? You get a resolution to that. You've now realized he's not murderous over the pig. And he goes back to his old life without the pig with a new friend in Amir. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't experienced life with people in a while, and in some weird way he's helped Amir and his father grieve on some level, even though the wife in that situation is not dead yet, but they're definitely
Oh yeah, that's right. She's
in
on
that
life
moment.
support. Yep.
And I mean, again, it's a lot of insinuation for sure. Audience insinuation. And I think that's the path it led me down. That's how I believed it ended. Was that?
Yeah. Well, the movie literally ends with him looking up, so I guess it has to be a positive ending.
Right. I think the insinuation is that he's better off than he was at the beginning of the movie, even though he doesn't have his pig. But
because he can listen to the tape, and before he couldn't.
He can listen to the tape. He has this person in his life now that he has some kind of relationship with. He went to the bakery. You know what I mean? Like all of these things that he had not been confronting, that the pig was kind of like a buffer for. He's now done. I'm sure none of those are like resolved 100%. Like even the bakery thing, is barely any dialogue in that scene. Like during that scene, I was like, is this his daughter? Who is he talking to?
Like a sous chef.
Right, you figure out it's just a chef.
It's a chef, yeah.
Yeah, another person in his life that he left the location to, basically. But the movie likes to do that, is start scenes with people and you have no clue who they are, and then it reveals to you over time. It's probably a good way to tell a story. And yeah, I thought it was pretty clear that it wasn't a depressing ending, but
yeah.
I
think
I agree. The movie
kill himself or anything.
Right.
The movie doesn't want you to think that, but I'm just saying. Even Amir, his friend, was worried about it. He's like, "You okay, man?" And like it's gonna get pretty quiet in that cabin in a week.
Maybe
I don't disagree, but I think the movie takes paces to tell you that things are looking up.
Literally.
His version of looking up, which is
Literally.
maybe not a normal version of looking up.
Yeah.
What was the list we did? Top 10 characters with a mysterious past. And James, yours was like Ethan Hunt. I feel like now we're gonna do top 10 characters with a mysterious future. And Zach, you're like,
it doesn't tell us.
The guy from the pig. What does he do now? It doesn't tell me.
Oh man. I bet that pig's alive.
Anything else on pig?
Just to
Yeah.
No, I think the tweakers probably killed the pig by accident.
How do you accidentally be too rough with the pig and it died?
Well, I mean, we're probably high on meth, so I'm gonna just say right there, you don't make good decisions. Pigs are not small. Like they may be the size of a dog, but they definitely are denser than like a dog, so they're heavier and they're gonna thrash more. They're more violent in that sense. So yeah, I could see if you don't have your full faculties, you don't know how to capture a pig. You're just told go to this cabin and steal a pig. It's very conceivable that you could do something struggling with a panicking pig that will cause that pig to die.
But they didn't kill the pig. They just injured the pig so that it died later.
Okay, sorry. Yes, you're right. It wasn't the COVID that killed them. It was the pneumonia.
No, I'm just
It's not
saying.
a
like, it
COVID
didn't
death.
No, it had some sort of injury that like later on it died. From
Okay,
its
so
injuries.
if I hit you in the back of the head and you then die in the hospital 6 days later from a hematoma, you're gonna be like, well, Kyle didn't kill him. He just bled out in the brain.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They didn't hand off a unconscious pig. You know what I mean?
Maybe they did. I don't know. Did they say?
It's not the sense I got.
So the
that's the
lifespan-
sense you got. I got this.
The
I got the
lifespan-
sense that they delivered a pig that was looking pretty rough, and the father's like, "What happened?" They're like, "Well."
The life expectancy of a pig is 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Do they date how long he's been disappeared?
Well, one woman was dead for the past 10 years. So at least more than 10.
So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it was an older pig.
It had comorbidities.
And, yeah, I mean,
It was probably an older pig.
Yeah.
it was an older pig. And I know my sister has a pig, a house pig, and pretty fat.
So
They literally had to
you're
put it
saying
on a
has,
diet
heart
because
issues.
its belly was like, it couldn't walk without dragging its belly on the ground. And so I can imagine, like, if you handled that pig wrong, trying to get it in the back of a car, because they're super heavy too. At an advanced age, you could probably kill a pig on accident.
Right. What I'm saying is they didn't deliver a dead pig. They delivered a live pig.
We don't know that.
That's what the movie wants us to think. Because in their conversation, he has a conversation
Okay.
with the people, and they very much present it as like, not your pig is dead, man. It's like, no, we gave your pig to a guy. We don't know who it is, but it's just a different conversation that if the pig was dead, they would not even mention the guy. They would say the pig died.
Okay, I
Don't
got
you
the
think?
impression that a dead pig was delivered.
Okay, according to
think-
Wikipedia, an emotional Darius leaves the table. When Rob follows him, Darius confesses that the junkies he hired for the theft had mishandled the pig, resulting in her death.
Correct.
Yeah, the junkies mishandled the pig, and it's dead now.
Right.
So
I'm just saying-
So they did deliver a dead pig.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the resulting in its death happened after the handoff.
So he got a pig that seemed fine, and it just keeled over a day later.
And then
No,
he
they
blamed
got
it
a
on the
pig in-
junkies.
They got a pig in rough shape, and then it died from its injuries 2
Okay,
days later.
so what's the difference between then a dead pig and a pig that pig's gonna die in 12 hours?
I can't believe we're talking about this.
I'm just saying I can absolutely picture someone accidentally killing a pig, right? It's just harder for me to picture someone accidentally hurting a pig so that they die later. That seems less plausible to me than they like accidentally kill the pig in the moment.
Have you heard of internal bleeding?
Yeah, but that's a lot rarer than like them accidentally killing the pig, right?
How do you know? How many
I'm just
how
saying-
many pig deaths have you been around in the last decade? And then you say
No,
75% of the time those pigs were already dead by the time I got there.
I would imagine that most pig deaths are instantaneous.
I have
Well,
no
most
clue.
accidental pig deaths are intentional, because intentional, I hope are
Intentional,
instantaneous.
Yeah, right. Was this a kosher death? I don't know. Was a
Was
rabbi
the
there
rabbi present?
when it was handed off? I'm
You know,
not sure.
one of the junkies did have a Star David, so I think it was okay.
Your knowledge of Judaism astounds me, Kyle.
Right. I mean, doesn't everyone just wear a necklace with their religion on it, make it super
Yeah.
easy for the rest of us?
That's how you tell.
All right, perfect, great. I love it.
This movie has a 97%. Is that Nicolas Cage's highest Rotten Tomatoes score?
Is that critics?
Probably.
I mean, what about? I mean, I don't think Raising Arizona would be higher. What about like the Scorsese one,
The
bringing
Scorsese one.
bringing out the dead or something like that? The ambulance driver one.
No, that wouldn't be higher than 97.
No, that
Okay.
that movie is divisive.
Divisive. Okay. Do you guys ever
It's
see
divisive.
8mm?
It's tied for the highest tomato meter. It's tied with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, Spider-Verse. Oh yeah,
He does a voice in that.
he does.
So I wouldn't
Oh.
necessarily call that a Nicolas Cage movie.
No.
So maybe Moonstruck? He was in Moonstruck.
Red Rock West, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
But I don't know
What
that
year
is.
was that?
Do you know what that is?
93. It's a hidden neo-noir gem with delightful cracks in its surface with Dennis Hopper.
Oh,
An ex-Marine, played by Nicolas Cage, stumbles into a bar in Red Rock, Wyoming, and the owner, played by J.T. Walsh, does things. Mistakes him for a hired killer and offers him $10,000 to kill his wife, played by Laura Flynn Boyle. He takes the money, then tells the wife, and then seduces her.
I need to see this.
I'm
Looks-
intrigued. What's this called? Red Rock.
Red Rock West, and it's got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
All right, that's going on. I need to watch 2021 movies, but that's going on the list.
It's pre-Rotten Tomatoes, so can't trust that tomato meter. But I'm sure it's good. The first one I would call a Nicolas Cage movie, like a movie that most people have seen that stars Nicolas Cage, is Face Off, which has 92%.
92.
Mm-hmm.
That's also pre-Rotten. That's pre-Rotten Tomatoes, isn't it?
Yes, so don't
Okay.
trust that one. How about Adaptation? That's the next one, 91% in the Rotten Tomato area.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
He has one that's at 90 or at 0. Sorry, at 0.
Really?
Is it Jujitsu?
Yeah.
Is he in
I don't
that?
know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was in Jujitsu.
1,000 words. Oh, he's just a producer on that. I don't know.
No,
if there's one. that's zero.
Deadfall, 1993.
Oh
Never heard of
yeah,
Deadfall.
Deadfall.
And Grand Isle, also 0%. Left Behind is at 1%. Arsenal, 3%. 211, 4%. Outcast, 4%. He's been
Deadfall
in
only
88
has
movies.
3 reviews. One of them says watchable only for camp value, and the other one says unpersuasive and shallow.
Okay, I'm gonna read you the Letterboxd plot synopsis to Deadfall with punctuation the best I can.
In a Nicolas Cage voice?
No. Just this is the
Oh.
sentence they present. After he accidentally kills his father, Mike, during a sting, Joe tries to carry out Mike's dying wish by recovering valuables that Mike's twin brother Lou stole from him years earlier. Period. But Uncle Lou is also a confidence artist, and Joe is soon drawn into his increasingly dangerous schemes. So that first sentence gives us 3 characters and at least 2 actions in the plot.
Okay.
Left Behind has 1% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Man,
with Nicolas Cage.
Is
Who
it
liked
that
it?
one reviewer, Armand, whatever his name is? Armand
I
White.
don't know.
Remember that guy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It seemed
Left
like he would-
Behind only has a 3% audience, which is really low for audience.
That's amazing.
'Cause, I mean, so what's the target audience for Left Behind? Is it super conservative Christians? Is it like
I don't know about
Roland
super
Emmerich
conservative,
Nicolas
people?
Cage
Or is it
fans.
Nicolas
Certainly
Cage fans?
people-
Okay.
Nicolas Cage fans and people who are interested in like faith-based movies. I
Yeah.
would say that's the crossover.
So no one liked it.
By Rotten Tomatoes score, what's the worst Nicolas Cage movie you've seen? For me, it's Bangkok Dangerous,
Oh, I'm not on. I don't know. I am
Which
not
is-
on Rotten
which
Tomatoes
was pretty
right now.
awful. I'm guessing. Have you seen Bangkok Dangerous?
I have
Kyle?
not.
Then for you, it's probably The Wicker Man.
Yep, it's probably. Oh no, or what about Gone in 60 Seconds?
No, that's
a good movie.
higher than we're talking tomato meter. Wicker Man
Okay.
has 15%.
What about G-Force?
G-Force has 22%.
Okay, so Wicker Man it is.
Wow, this is crazy. The Life of David Gale has a 19% Rotten Tomatoes with an 81% audience.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like. What year did that come out?
2003. So Rotten Tomatoes era.
Everyone owned that on DVD in college.
Why?
It was just I would go to a friend's house and look at their DVD collection, and it was always Life of David Gale in every single one.
Gone in
Never even
60
seen it.
Seconds. Also, 25% Rotten Tomatoes, 77% audience.
Yeah. That's my lowest Nicolas Cage.
Do you know why I don't like Gone in 60 Seconds?
No. Do you hate Shelby's?
No, I in what year did that come out? 2000 and
Probably 2000.
2003.
okay, so
Oh, really? Okay.
it was the summer.
2000.
Yeah, it was like summer 2004 or something, and I was helping my brother buy a used car, and we went to a dealership, and this was like when you had to do the whole. They would say, "Oh, here's the used car. Here's the price," and you say, "Oh, I want this price," and they have to go check with their manager, right? And it like that's how you negotiated, where it would just take. And it was my first time driving a used car, so I didn't.
They still do that.
They
a lot of
still
times.
do
Okay.
that, by the way.
Well, we went car shopping recently. It was much
When you buy a
smoother.
new car, it's different.
Yeah. Anyway, we being new to this situation, I could judge time by sitting in that waiting room and watching Gone in 60 Seconds, which was on TV with commercials.
Mhm.
And I was at that dealership long enough to watch the entire movie with commercials and not leave there with a car. So I
This
associate
is why you
that
hate
movie.
the movie.
Yeah, well, yes, just because I associate that movie with that a terrible car buying experience
Mm.
that I just never want to see it again because I don't want to remember sitting in that lobby for 3-4 hours trying to negotiate over like a 1998 Subaru whatever.
And yet,
I remember
you
the
still
director at the
remember it.
time was so angry that it was most people's first experience watching in car dealerships, because they meant it for like a theatrical or TV experience.
Yeah.
Yep. They sued the production company for releasing it
Yeah.
exclusively in car dealerships. So
That
Yeah,
is
for sure.
not the last movie I watched at a car dealership that I logged on Letterboxd. So
I watched lots of movies at a car dealership.
Oh, yeah,
but
waiting for you.
I was supposed to be working.
well, that's true. You worked at a car dealership. I was waiting for repairs.
Oh, yeah. hard.
And Jiu-Jitsu has a 28% Rotten Tomatoes score. What's the audience score?
Oh, I bet you it's 60.
64%. 64% of the people that watch that movie, Kyle, like it.
And the other 36% actually know what jujitsu is.
Okay, I need a group consensus. Is City of Angels a good movie or a bad movie?
I don't
It's-
remember that movie.
It's a good bad movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 82% audience score.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're probably all like girls who saw it in high school, at our high school.
Is it a romantic comedy?
No, it's a romantic drama.
Oh.
He dies and becomes an angel and haunts
Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan.
And
Dennis
Iris
Franz is in it.
Goo Goo Dolls plays in the background the entire time.
I loved it.
I have not seen it.
But you've heard the song.
I've
But-
heard the City of Angels song.
Yeah, Iris by Goo Goo
I've
Dolls.
seen Crow City of Angels.
No. And I don't want the world to tell me because everything will be all right. But I
No, 'cause
can't.
I don't think that they
don't
understand.
want the world to see me.
Are you talking about 3 a.m.?
No.
Just want them to know who
Matchbox
I am.
Yeah.
20?
No, Iris by Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh,
I can't
Iris.
sing it. The world
can't?
to see me. I can't sing
Thought
it
you-
well.
I thought you
Don't
could sing
want
it.
to know who I am. Well, everything
Play it on your
to be
euphonium.
broken. I just want you to know who I am.
Wait. Kyle, stop. I don't want to
Yeah.
get claimed.
Oh, okay. Really, that singing was so good
It's just like the original.
that the
The
bot's
algorithm's
going to
match
be
us
like,
to the original.
was that
and-
Johnny Resnick
block
on that
us.
on that podcast? Was he doing an a cappella version of Goo Goo Dolls?
Name me another Goo Goo Dolls song.
Oh my goodness! Long Way Down from Twister.
Okay, name me one that's not related to a movie.
See, I confuse Goo Goo Dolls.
Fly? Are they Fly?
How does Fly go?
Fly?
I wanna fly. That one.
You gotta give me more than that.
No. I just want to fly. That song?
that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
No,
that's Sugar Ray.
That's Sugar Ray.
Same era.
Goo Goo Dolls.
Slide.
Oh, why don't
Slide.
you slide dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 way bum, ba, dun, 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 to me? Yeah, Goo Goo Dolls always sounded like bad Collective Soul in my mind. Like I would hear a Goo Goo Dolls song, think, oh, is that Collective Soul? I'm like, oh no, that's much worse. Collective
I
Soul is
thought
better.
Collective Soul was bad Collective Soul. So
You don't like Collective Soul?
Wow.
I mean, there's one or two songs, but have you ever
Shots
tried listening
fired.
to those albums?
No,
that
no.
time period?
I listened to like the 6 good songs that made radio hits.
Right.
I'm sure the
right,
albums are not very great.
Right, but there are bands from that era where the whole albums were good, but Collective Soul was not one of them.
No.
For sure. All right, we are way off the topic at this point.
Any other Pig spoilers?
Anything else on Pig? Are we done with?
I
Pig?
liked it, but I didn't love it. I had problems with it.
Loved it. I don't know what could have made it better because it's a very unique movie. It's hard to
Really
compare
liked
to other
it.
things. Yeah. All right. Liked it. Didn't love it. Loved it. Really liked it. For Pig. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye.